Give me a minute. Do, 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 do. Oh god. That's why I hate doing. Oh no, did I lose it? I think I lost it. Let's see. Do, do, do. There we go. Now drop it down to here.
Listen!
Hi, Oz! Thank you for scaring me. For cracking a river of fire. Well, we'll see. Might be a river of fire, might not be a river of fire. I just need to get this set up right. Because technically, we're just reading the story up in here. Now, if I try and size this correctly, no matter how I do this, it's gonna be a little iffy. So long as people find it legible, that's fine. Do, do, do. I'll make the text a bit bigger just so it shows up. And yeah. We are essentially just on Faye reading somebody else's story. The full experience of Faye. Do, do. Yeah, Fields of Asphodel by JJ Lawyer. Welcome to Fields of Asphodel. Basically, this is just check the settings and ask whether you want to go through the full character customization. Yay! And also, good job on the 5-stream streak, Oz! Thank you, thank you. We'll go with full because it's fun. Okay, I guess I'm... Okay. Why does everyone want to look at the hooves? What is it with the hooves? Your birth was a matter of some controversy, you've been told. Demeter, goddess of agriculture, law, and a number of other things, was never known to become overly familiar with her subjects, nor indeed even the other deities of Olympus. Some have referred to her as cold or distant, and others have used much worse terms in a similar vein. Even those who think kindly of her have noted that in those days she was rather aloof, and perhaps a touch too solemn. But she's always been the sort of person who takes her duties very seriously. Which made the birth of you, a half-god, the kind of thing that resulted in quite the stir. Still, in her eminently practical way, your mother's public announcement was short, to the point. She had given birth to a baby. Don't question me. Hey, I don't shame anyone for their tastes. It's fine, Oz. If you're a hoof demon, you're a hoof demon. do. 'Cause it's Faye. Daughter, and that was the long and short. She had given birth to a baby daughter, and that was the long and short of it. A future demigoddess, to be raised on Olympus under the watchful eye of Demeter and her household. You're sure that, had she had her way, That really would have been all there was to it, but to hear your Aunt Hestia tell it, the situation was fraught from the very beginning. Usually half-humans are left to mature in the mortal realm, and if any wish to be a part of Olympus, they must earn the right by impressing one or more of the greater Olympians, who may then petition Zeus, king of the gods, on that half-human's behalf, for the gift of immortality and a place in the realm of the gods. Of course, every other half-human before you had a god for a father, not a goddess for a mother, and had therefore been born in the mortal realm, to a mortal family. Don't know exactly how the argument went. The story says that your mother, showing up to court barely postpartum and with you on her hip, successfully argued that your birth upon Olympus entitled you to the same rights as any other individual born there, be they gods or otherwise. You became a precedent, and also a target. I've known many a demon with hooves. Alright, so we've figured out Oz's type. Oh no. Does that mean I'm Oz's type? To shield you from the wrath of Zeus, known both to hold grudges for a long time, and to be rather impetuous of temper, Demeter and her household elected to keep you out of his sight, for the most part, and within the sights of much of Olympian society. You were raised on her sprawling estate, its perfectly ordered gardens, orchards, and outbuildings the bounds of your world. For company, you had your mother, her household, and your Aunt Hestia, as well as the very occasional approved guest. You were told little about your father, and eventually you learned not to ask for the pained expression that would cross your mother's face when he came up was acute. And no one else had any information to give you. Whoever he is, wherever he may be, Demeter seems to have told no one at all. In some ways, your upbringing was indeed quite isolated, but in your younger years, you seldom felt that. You were always kept busy by your various tutors and teachers, be they people specifically hired to give you the well-rounded education your mother wished for you, or simply members of the staff you had something to learn from. Like anyone else, you have your aptitudes. In particular, you've always been quite talented in the realm of... Don't judge me, it's completely normal for humans. I guess it depends on the demons. I mean, the demons I've met, I think only a few have had hooves. Again, most of them have been succubi, haven't they? What people might term book learning. My tutor was always impressed by how quickly I grasped new concepts. Physical aptitude. My self-defense instructor always had a good thing to say. If we're basing this off of Fae, that one's out. The magic of my domains. I was born with an unusually strong one for a half-human, and I've developed with the help of my mother and teacher. Yay! 5C streak! Good job, Glass! I'm proud of you, hon. What could be called intuition? I've just always had a sense for the people around me, or when something is off in my immediate environment. People skills, as they're sometimes called. I'm good at convincing people to see things my way. So... I don't have hooves, but I can appreciate some nice hooves. I mean, I say that, but I have hooves, so who am I to say shit? And considering it's I'm a fae, it's a choice. Which do we want to go with? I'm pretty strong into these two. Mostly because these three are funny. On the other end of the spectrum. So let's go with magic of my domains. Generally speaking, demigods are not capable of magic on the same scale as fully fledged deities. Many of them, in fact, have no outright magic at all, being rather unusually strong or swift or things like that. You, however, have a domain that lends itself to magic, and the aptitude to make use of it. Your early magical tutelage was handled by your mother's assistant, Anthea, a small, wrinkled nymph with mossy green hair. In spite of her retiring appearance, she was strict in your education, with a fussy attention to detail that seemed burdensome at first, but later became a gift. Magic as powerful as yours needs control, after all, and having a handle on the fundamentals was drilled into you until it was instinct. It has helped a lot with that. Nowadays, your mother teaches you most of the new magic you learn. And yet you can't help but feel that the application to which she sets you, mostly plant maintenance and other gardening-related tasks, are far from the limit of what you can do. Still, without someone who can teach you how to stretch that metaphorical muscle, or materials from which to teach yourself, you've been somewhat limited in your ability to explore it. Do, do, do. And we get to choose the second one. Of course, your education was more varied than that, and you tried your hand at a lot of things over the years. You had an affinity also for book learning. I was actually very good at that, so yes, I've always been good at learning. Mostly. Most of the time. 99% of the time. 98, 97, 96. Your education has certainly included mainstay subjects like history, politics, mathematics is the one thing where I fuck up, and ecology. And what you don't learn directly, you learn through books and stories. Your mother's library is not, from what you've heard, the largest on Olympus. I'm always down to help stretch metaphoricals. Good job, Oz. But it was large enough to satisfy you, at least at first. Reading that right after that is just... Moving on! When the written recollections proved wanting, you pressed your tutor, your elderly, wispy-haired and gray-hided centaur named Pholos, for stories instead. Oral history, after all, is no less reliable than the written sort. Both have their shortcomings, but you reached a point where you just needed more information to which you could apply your critical thinking skills. Pholos was happy to oblige, but you got the sense that he felt he could tell you was... You got the sense that what he felt he could tell you was somewhat limited, and it didn't take you too long to deduce that the source of the limitation was Demeter. When you asked your mother about this, she freely confessed there were some parts of history no one talks about. You also got the impression that the king has a lot to do with this soft prohibition. But even that, it seems, was not something she could directly tell you. Still, you've come away from it all with enough knowledge to know you have gaps in it, and that's something. Until the day you can fill those in, you have to be satisfied with learning more of what's available, but it's not as if you've exhausted your resources yet by any means. Oh, it was a large... Good job. Good job, Oz. I'm not proud of you, but I'm proud of you. Your strength has served well. Your strengths have served you well insofar as you've ever really needed them. Admittedly, you don't have much practical experience in, well, anything. In some sense, even the gardening you've done was conducted under artificial circumstances. Demeter's fields, orchards, and gardens, which supply the vast majority of the food the gods eat, need regular maintenance, but are otherwise almost astoundingly easy to take care of. Perhaps because they feed directly from her tremendous powers. But more than lacking experience, you do have your weaknesses, as anyone does. Specifically... Turn that down just a little. I'm quite incurably clumsy, and no amount of attempted physical conditioning can fix it. I'm also physically weaker than one would expect a half-god to be. People have told me I can be a bit oblivious and unobservant, but I've never noticed anything like that. Or, I have what might generously be called a blank resting expression. And in general, I struggle to handle social situations with anything resembling charisma or poise. Technically, it's a spongy tissue. That's the exact reaction I aim for. There are plenty of ways to rig out a sponge. No, what's that? Okay. So, those are our options for weakness. Which one do we want to go with? Any of these is kind of fun. I have not done the middle one. The top one, the top one is just me. Just fully honest, that is just me. I have never not tripped over something. And when I have avoided tripping over something, I trip over something else because of course I fucking do. And if anything, I have the opposite of a blank resting expression. Most of what I feel is generally expressed in my face, I think. Not that this has to be after Faye, I just like magic and being smart. Which one do we want to go with? I'm willing to go clumsy unless anyone has any preferences. Do. Do hate that rotating thing. It always makes me think things are moving on the fucking OPS screen, but no, it's just the stupid little banner I can't get rid of. Wah. I'm gonna say clumsy. You're quite incurably clumsy, and no amount of attempted physical conditioning can fix it. Also, blah blah blah. Expected to have got to be, and though some part of you is perpetually trapped in the same kind of stumbling unease as an hours old fawn or colt, it's not that bad on a daily basis. Perhaps you smacked your ouch. But you smacked your shoulders into enough door frames and stubbed your toes on enough table legs and tripped over enough instances of absolutely nothing at all to understand that you struggle more with just existing in space than most people do. God, you have no idea how embarrassing it is to trip over fucking nothing. It is... Anyway... The fact that you're also not that much stronger, physically speaking, than the average human probably hasn't helped your mother sleep at night. Your tutor, in all things athletic, brash, a brash, deep-skinned centaur, with eyes the color of the sky by the name of Hilanome. Hilanome. Fuck it. Hello, but has done what she can to mitigate these things, and you're now what she calls anti-fragile, in that you're flexible and practiced enough at things like this to be unlikely to injure yourself in most ordinary mishaps. But that's about it. The way your mother still winces when anything happens makes you wonder, though, if she would not perhaps have preferred a more physically capable child. Recently, at least by the standards of the gods, you've reached both physical and mental adulthood. But little has changed. You still live in your mother's estate, pursuing the same interests as you always have. And that will continue to be the case whether you are perfectly comfortable with it or yearn for more. Your conversations with those who live outside your little world have not done a lot to convince you that Zeus would be inclined to let you live as you preferred were you to do so away from your mother's direct protection. The particular nature of what he would do instead varies with whom you ask, but the general consensus seems to be that at best you'd be allowed to exist in the same service class as the nymphs, satyrs, centaurs, and other non-gods with whom you associate so easily in Demeter's home. You belong, she says. This is your home. And you know she means it. Her home will always be yours, for as long as you want it. And yet... Still, there are certain aspects of your life in which you could not have been freer. You've never been punished for expressing your thoughts, even in the cases where they are disagreed with, or not understood, and your identity has always been yours to shape in whatever way you prefer or manners feel right to you. Your gender included. God, that would be nice. Always around you Always around you, there have been people with a full spectrum of identity and expressions, more than happy to share what they know with you and entertain your questions. You've always been given not only leave, but opportunity to freely explore such matters as you chose, in which you did. Wasn't closer to meow. Do, 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 do. And now flip a coin. Tails. Doop. Pronouns. Yay. Doop. Took about the same time as a human would have to age, both physically and mentally. It's still a bit hard to get your head around the idea that some god spring fully formed into being, or reach maturity within the space of weeks or months rather than years, while others seem to have extended childhoods the likes of which are somehow even more difficult to imagine. In any case, you certainly look the part of a human, or a deific adult. Your hair has always been... Our options are dark brown, light brown, golden blonde, vivid red, deep black. Go with red, I like red. Your hair has always been a vivid, deep red, a sharp contrast with the only two relatives you know. Its texture, too, is the same as it has been since your birth. That is, gently wavy, and it's always been gently but noticeably wavy. These days you wear it, God, I remember when my hair was like to my waist, and I'm trying to get it there again. It is so much work. It's nice, but it's so much work, and it is heavy. I have returned to my rightful positioning. Do, 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 do. You prefer to wear it long, to around your waist when it isn't tied up or otherwise altered by style. Your skin is fortunately healthy and now free of some adolescent complications, foreign to most of the people you know, and therefore rather a challenge back then for you to figure out how to look after. Its color is light brown, dark brown, middling shade of brown, tawny, perhaps a hint it's quite pale, or tanned, also called olive. Let's go to light brown. And deep green. Your eyes share the same deep green as Demeter's, something of a true green, brighter than the color of pine needles, but deeper than the shoots of grass. In short, you share some similarities with your closest known relatives, but other parts of your appearance seem to have come from elsewhere, which has occasionally prompted you to wonder. Are you a harmonious blend of your parents? Or more in the matter of the gods, does your appearance reflect something other than your heritage? Whatever the case may be, it's yours. The skin you've grown into under the watchful eyes and guiding hands of the people who love you. You are the goddess of spring, and your life is never going to be the same again. Prologue! And all of that, and we're not even at the prologue yet. Yay! Lord of the Dead. The walls of your mother's stately living room are smoothly plastered painted cream, the olive green drapes, with their gold thread edging a modest frame to the open window leading out into the garden beyond. The entirety of your life, these grounds, and rarely the Olympian metropolis some miles away, have been more or less your entire world. It is a world that you will be departing today, to be carried off somewhere entirely new by someone you've never met. It feels... like a pending disaster. The underworld, of all places. It's the stuff of nightmares, I've heard. Infuriating. My life has never been my own, but I am not a bargaining chip for petulant gods to exchange. Perplexing. I honestly have no idea what Hades is thinking. You can do better than a half-human, I'm sure. Terrifying. I've never known anything but this, and now I'd be carted off somewhere like the underworld. God, just the way of saying that is, I'm going down there? With people like that? I admit, I'm more curious than anything. I've always wondered about the world outside, and this is really my first and likely only chance to see any of it. Exciting. My mother is little but a warden to my imprisonment. Perhaps the Lord of the Dead will not mind so much if I want to go out now and then. I am withholding judgment until I actually know what's expected of me. All of these are. We'll go with that. The pale branches of a fig tree sway in the rectangle of outside vision the living room affords. The air smells fresh as it stirs the curtains on the way in, settling the thread to glinting in the light. It is familiar, the sight. It is of you in a very direct way. You were, in fact, the one who gave life to that tree. It makes the scattered words from from tutors and short paragraphs in books about the underworld difficult to connect to, difficult to really imagine. That makes you curious about it. Will it be as you expect? How will it feel? The questions might be the first to everyone's mind. The questions might not be the first to everyone's mind. They certainly occupy yours well enough. You close your eyes as the breeze reaches your face, carrying with it the heavy scent of summer fruits. You know how to pick them all out by now. It's just one of those particular things about your maternal inheritance. Another thing about your maternal inheritance seems to be the ire of Zeus. Not that you've ever met him. No doubt his insistences on all of this is part of some long political game he's been playing with Demeter for eons. Needless to say, it's not how you expected marriage to go for you. Boop. We'll go with yeah, so it's basically just, do you love one are you monogamous? Possibly polyamorous. Don't really care, you're aromantic. Romantic attraction, but you don't really care about settling down. I mean, just off of that, I like. Doop. You always hope to be with someone or someones you loved. That's such a strange thing to want, you suppose. The gods in general tend to be freer to choose that sort of thing than you've heard humans are. You're not exactly politically valuable. Your mother had told you long ago that while you're always that she would always offer advice, your art was ultimately your own, and you were free to give or withhold it as you chose. It was almost uncharacteristically permissive of her, and you've always wondered about it, a little. In any case, you certainly were never given any reason to suppose that anyone would be deciding this facet of your future for you, but you, no matter how it turned out. But maybe Zeus is doing this as some sort of favor for his brother. As little as you know about the king, you know much less about Hades. Who apparently is now your husband-to-be. What's his role in all of this? You know him only as a name, a faceless figure of Olympian nightmare, said to wear the pall of death like a cloak and bring the taint of the underworld itself everywhere he treads. A fearsome, loathsome creature, jealous of the light of Olympus and the richness of the oceans that were afforded to his brothers. What someone like that would want to do with you cannot begin to guess. Cracking your eyes back open, you turn them back down and notice a wrinkle in the fabric of your tunic. You run a hand over the embroidered silk. I decided to put my best foot. And dried linen. Don't want to be insulting, but this is no celebratory occasion, and I won't pretend it is. Plain linen. Let's see what the so-called King of the Dead makes of that. Stretch. Yeah, this can be really chill. Well, aside from certain things. Zeus has smote my upper mouth. Burned it on the yummy food. No! Circumstances aside, it's not an insignificant day in your life. And the god you will be following home is not of insignificant stature either. Best not to risk dressing less than appropriately for the occasion. Just in time, your hand smooths away, leaving the fabric beneath perfectly straight. The scuffing, aggravated footsteps heralds Demeter's approach. The heavy swish of fabric and the chime of golden earrings portending her appearance in the living room. She looks, of course, perfectly put together, her tunic and robe contrasting shades of green, dark on light and embroidered in copper and gold threads at the edges, a gold sash tucking the lower garment in at the waist, and golden pins affixing her sleeves, in a neat regular row, like heads of corn spaced immaculately in a field. Her dark brown hair is half pulled away from her face, the elegant curls left framing her forever youthful features deliberately placed. She spots you and frowns deeply, her brow drawing together until a line appears between them, and she clicks her tongue against her teeth. "Oh, my darling," she murmurs, and then her voice turns hard. "I will not let him get away with this indignity. Mark me, I will have it turned around inside a season, and Zeus will regret his overstep." She's working herself up for a rant. You can feel it. Stress often leads her to do that, and of course, she loves you, and you're being put through this. Speaking of yummy food, I think I'm gonna have a burger today. Especially since I'll finally have the spray that makes it stop sticking to stuff. Don't worry, Mother. Whatever comes of this, I'm sure we can handle it between us. Offer a smile, though. I can feel how thin it is. Trying to give her some measure of assurance that I don't believe in. Mother, contain yourself. Now is hardly the time to become blinded by emotion. If we are to reverse this change in circumstance, we must be practical and calm. I shrugged, turning away from her with hunched shoulders. Never know, Mother. Maybe it won't be as bad as you're thinking. Don't work too hard, Mother. I have no guarantee the underworld will be a worse place to live than here. She's doing it. She's actually doing it. Faye is doing something right away and not holding it off. What's that mean? Hi, Christ. But never know, Mother. Maybe it won't be as bad as you're thinking. You don't want to assume the worst of anybody or anywhere before you've had a chance to learn more. After all, no matter what you've heard, the situation is certainly not ideal, but you recognize that you have right now is a tiny part of the story. Just what Zeus has told Demeter that you are to do, and a handful of rather superstitious-sounding tales about the underworld. Certainly you can be unhappy about the circumstances of this great upheaval in your life, without yet denouncing the upheaval itself. Or at least you can hope that maybe things will turn out for the best. Maybe that relentless optimism of a particularly foolish sort. The expression on your mother's face certainly seems to say so, but you're going to stick to it until you have reason to do otherwise. At least. It's true, go Faye, yay! Demeter takes a deep breath, moving a few steps towards you and reaching out. You feel the gentle warmth of her fingers on your cheeks, and then your chin as she gently tilts it upward to look into your eyes. I apologize, she says. I'm letting fear run away with me. All your life I've tried to avoid exactly this. This kind of interference, congratulatory bonk. Genuinely spooked me. Good job, Chris. I allow the touch on my face without issue. It's a little reassuring, honestly, and if it can help her get a handle on things, all the better. I allow the touch with indifference. My mother expresses herself this way, and I don't have much opinion about it one way or another. I allow the touch in spite of my misgivings. I don't enjoy this contact from anyone, but I'll sit through it if it's helping her somehow. I allow the touch in spite of some misgivings. It's uniquely difficult to endure this kind of touch from my mother, perhaps because of the strain and the undercurrents of our relationship. But right now, an exception is warranted. I lean back. I don't enjoy this kind of touch from anyone, but she forgets sometimes, being such a physically expressive person. I lean back. It's uniquely difficult yep. I am between boop and boop. I do in general do stand actually struggle with physical stuff. Let's go with Boop. Uh, For right now, an exception is warranted. She begins again, taking a half a breath as if to bolster herself. Is this a bad time? The voice draws both your and your mother's attention. Masculine but light, it has a certain musical fluidity. Aside from the pause, the cadence is rapid and lilting. A god enters the living room, a pretty smile flashing white teeth, bright against deep brown skin. His black, loosely coiled hair floats every which way about his head, windswept in a way easily explained by the large, falconine wings that nearly trail over the ground behind him. They're just a little whiter than the almost metallic silver of his large eyes, set in a youthful face and soft features. Ready? Yes? Turning the smile on you. And we've met the first one! Say hello to Hermes. Hermes, it's hard to contain a sigh of relief, so I don't bother. At least my best friend is here. Hermes. My mouth falls into a frown. Of all the times for this pest to show up, why does it have to be now? Mother, who is this? It seems an odd time for a stranger to appear in the living room, but he must have a reason. I'm gonna go with that, because it unlocks an option later that is fun. Hermes, it's hard to contain a sigh of relief, so you don't bother. At least your best friend is here. You've known him since the both of you were children, as he tells it. As he tells it, Hermes didn't really have an infancy, but he spent quite a while as a kid. And when the two of you met, you were in a similar enough part of your life that you related to each other very well. He'd accompanied his mother Maya to your home for a visit, and the two of you had hit it off so well that your mother essentially had no choice but to allow him by often. If she hadn't, he'd have just come anyway. Hey, sunshine, he says, half his mouth curling into a wry smile. What a couple of days it's been, huh? You resist the urge to drag your hands down your face. He's not wrong. Anyway, he says, planting his hands on his hips, I'm supposed to lead your little processional to meet his deathliness, no? I think it's about that time. Still smiling a bit, he makes a sweeping gesture toward the door and steps aside. The nymph chorus, or whatever you've got, seem to be all ready, so let's follow suit, shall we? Demeter nods, and you're ushered out of your home. There does seem to indeed to be quite the assemblage of people outside. Some of them you recognize, tutors, servants of the house, your mother's staff. Most of them are, in fact, nymphs, in all the colors of the natural world. But you recognize a few of the local gods, goddesses, and deities as well. Those who have learned at your mother's knee, or, more cynically, like to cling to her train. Hermes beside you matches your stride, straightening his back and looking rather professional in his elaborately dyed red tunic and the trademark sandals with the miniature silver wings on them. As far as you can tell, they're just decorative. Despite his words about leading, he remains more or less beside you as you're enveloped by the processional. It is Demeter who takes the spot at the front. You suppose you could talk to him if you so desired. What do you know about him, Hades? I don't really have a choice, about meeting him. Hermes, you're really fast, right? Can you get me out of here? I really wish we didn't have to do a parade. Or I just stay quiet. What do you know about him, Hades? He cocks his head to the side, reaching his hands up in what seems to be an attempt to put his hair to rights. Not sure why he's bothering until you catch the side eye he's giving your mother's handmaiden, Nomia. Everyone has ideas about him, he says, attentive to the question in spite of his wandering eyes. Honestly, it's probably just better if you form your own. He's not the kind of guy that can be put into a few sentences. Shifts his eyes back to you and they soften a little. I can't imagine how you feel right now. Yeah, but if you're scared, there's less reason for that than you might think. The corner of his mouth ticks up again as the professional starts to move. Yeah, this is really just gonna be Faye reading for 4 to 5 hours. Yay! This is what we all need again. Do. Music heralds your progress as soon as you hit the Central Avenue. It would seem Zeus has really gone all out on this. Elaborate shop fronts and plush residences alike are festooned in still blooming flowers and trains of almost gossamer fine silk. Fae reading or Fae writing? Which failing? Both. Aw, thanks class. Meow. You wonder if maybe some of the taste, a bit more delicate than anything you've heard of Kings of the God, might be someone else's work. You're supposed to preside over matrimony, right? Olympus's population has come out in force today. Then again, it's not like any of them have ever needed much of an excuse to have a party, as you've been told. The chime of laughter and buzz of conversation joins the joyful noise as the party proceeds. Remy soaks in the atmosphere, though he's slightly more subdued about it than you suppose he might otherwise be. Probably out of deference to your situation. It's interesting to see a side of him you don't have much experience with. You've never really known what his public face looks like. Though you're aware that he's a popular figure on Olympus, the youngest of the so-called 12 Olympians. Your mother isn't precisely immune to the atmosphere either, walking straight and with a dignified, serene grace that you at least know is a little bit artificial. But she too is a well-respected figure, in her way, though you don't know if popular is the right word or not. You, on the other hand, have perhaps even seen the city only a handful of times in your life, and next to no one knows who you are. To be honest, I don't care much for Olympus in general, but it would have been nice to have the freedom to explore if I had desired to. Few tastes I've had of Olympus broadly have always left me wanting more, and I'd have loved the freedom to explore more thoroughly. I have no great love of Olympus, broadly speaking, and it might be easy to understand why my mother didn't want me out and about on my own. I love what a little of Olympus I've seen, but I've always understood why my mother allowed me access to so little of it. Let's go with the top one. Boop. To be honest, I don't much care for Olympus in general, but it would have been nice to have the freedom to explore it had you desired to. It's the principle of the thing, as it were. You doubt you would have exercised such a privilege very often, considering where you are and how unfond you are of it, but having the ability would have meant something. Your feet pass over the smooth marble flagstones, the white of them bright even on the main thoroughfare. It catches the brilliant sunlight from overhead, as do the precious metals worked into the paint and design of the building around you, giving everything a dreamy, almost hazy glimmer. You smell baking goods, flowers of all kinds, the sweet earthy tones of nectar wine. The blend of voices fluctuates around you as the processional moves, one or two occasionally rising over the celebratory din like cresting waves in an ocean of sound. Music is coming from somewhere, probably more than one somewhere. Options? It's a sensory heaven. But then, this is Olympus. I'll enjoy it while I can. The underworld is bound to be very different. It's far too much for me. Overwhelming. I just focus on putting one foot in front of the other. It's far too ostentatious for my taste, but my sense process is fine. I don't really feel one way or other about it. It's just how things are. Doop. We go with me. And the sensory input is starting to make you feel itchy, uncomfortable, like your skin doesn't fit right. A slight twitch in your fingers becomes a fine tremor. And then someone shouts something at Hermes. You can't help but flinch. The sound of your own breath is loud in your ears, and then it's the only thing you can hear. Filter seems to have dropped over your vision, blending the colors and dimming the light. Even the smells are less intense. Everything continues around you at the same pace and presumably volume, as though nothing is different, and yet for you the difference is night and day. Well, perhaps not that drastic, but certainly enough so to immediately begin easing the tension in your shoulders, letting the itch beneath your skin subside. Just keep walking, someone murmurs, tone soft and somehow all around you at once. The worst will be over soon. Strangely, you can't distinguish anything about the voice, not even its pitch. It's like it just doesn't register with you as anything but the words themselves. Side note, genuinely, I do struggle with Like, I fucking hate parades. There's too much going on at once. I do not do well. Do, do, do. Who are you? What have you done to me? Is there some kind of magic? Thank you. I'm not quite able to speak right now, but I can't nod, so I do. I'm gonna go with is there some kind of magic, because I feel like that is a fixation. Is this kind of magic? Dulling sensory input has allowed your processing to catch up, and slowly your body comes back down from the secondary symptoms too. Your shaking easing somewhat, and the feeling of wrongness starting to settle. It's enough that your foremost feeling is now curiosity. Yes, the voice replies simply, sounding perhaps the faintest bit pleased, though you still can't identify any other characteristics. I haven't done anything to you yourself, just enclosed you in a bubble, if you like. One that dampens everything outside of it passing in. I thought you might find it helpful. If you would like me to drop the spell at any time, please not twice. Otherwise, I'll have to once you reach Zeus. He's likely to take offense to your being shielded from his presence, and I fear that would be more harm still. Actually, I'm okay. You can take it down. Nope. Do you mind keeping it up? I don't much care about offending Zeus at this point. That's probably the best plan. Understand. Do you mind if I study the spell in the meantime? Study the spell. Study the spell! I understand. Do you mind if I study the spell in the meantime? I'll give you a nice distraction, you think. Something to set your mind to that isn't everything going on around you. Besides, you're curious. You've never seen magic turn to this kind of application before. Study it. The voice pauses for a second. No, I don't mind. Go ahead. You sense the presence attached to the voice remains close, but it's not much bother as you reach for your native magic. Having a limited domain and rather limited practice so far doesn't make this the easiest thing to do, but after a little bit of concentrating, you think you finally come into contact with the spell work. It is, as the voice specified, more or less a bubble-shaped field, kept quite close to you, perhaps so as to not catch anyone else. It seems unexpectedly complicated, like an intricate weave instead of a solid barrier, which would be a lot simpler. But it's the very same complexity that makes a dampener instead of simply a solid block, which would be much help since you need to keep walking. Your studies indicate that this is advanced magic. Most gods wouldn't be able to do something like this unless they had an appropriate domain strength or studied a lot of theory. You pull your magic back, exhaling as a soft wave of warmth eases over your limbs. Did you learn something? The voice asks. Yes, actually, you reply, seeing no reason not to. That's good. I found this spell useful on many occasions. Perhaps it can be for you as well. I wonder if it could. I've always had a talent for magic, but this is something well outside your area. You want to ask more to try it for yourself, but this is neither the time nor the place. And probably you should be a bit more careful with someone whose identity is entirely occluded to you. There's a brief period of silence. You can see several familiar figures just coming into view ahead of you. That hulking musculature draped in gold can only be Zeus. The slighter figure next to him is recognizable as Hera. Demeter has made a point of introducing you to the major players in Olympus, the ones she deems safe for you to interact with anyway. Though most of them you've not encountered, more than once or twice in visits to her estate. Your diminutive, full-figured Aunt Hestia is a frequent house guest, always bringing along some form of small gift, either baked goods or handicrafts. You're pretty sure she's standing next to the slightly hunched Hephaestus. Quite an assemblage of notable persons, the voice remarks, a touch dryly, you think. Would it be too much to ask what you make of this whole business? At the moment, please don't. It's kind of daunting. I'm terrified, if I'm being honest with you. I still can't believe this is happening to me. Whatever happens, at least I'll be off Olympus. No one's actually asked me that before. I don't mean to offend, but with all due respect, I have no idea who you are. Let's go with Dupe. Because if you think about it, frowning. Truly, the voice sounds a touch offended on your behalf. I knew the matter wasn't exactly your decision, but truly, you confirm, Demeanor's annoyance and fretting on your behalf isn't the same as actually seeking your feelings on the subject. Granted, perhaps she simply thinks it would be obvious, or known you well enough to detect your thoughts on the matter, but still, you don't think that's likely. She'd likely be even more up in arms if you believed you had any degree of optimism or curiosity about this. Then I am doubly sorry. It's hard to say what, if any emotion lies behind the words, but they are not spoken harshly at least. By then, you're close enough to see just about everyone at the end of the processional, and it would seem Hades himself is still not in attendance. The spell will fade out now, the voice says, and you nod a little. Fortunately, the process is gradual, and by now you've bypassed the largest knots of people, meaning that at least the sound is much less overwhelming here. Though, being in the presence of the major Olympians is its own kind of taxing. I might have to go for water again soon. I mean, this is what I get for doing a stream where I'm basically just reading a story. Russian comes to a halt before the king of the gods. Normally this would involve some bowing and such, but at the moment, no such thing seems to be happening. Her mother is now in the presence of her rival, is glowering in a way that twists her face, and Zeus is glowering right back. Beside him, Hera's shoulders move in a way that suggests a quiet sigh. She catches your eyes and smiles wanly, pushing a strand of long, glimmering golden hair over her thin shoulder. Next to you, a smile tugs at Hermes' lips. This ought to be interesting. No sooner has he spoken than Demeter breaks eye contact with Zeus, making a noise of disgust. He, on the other hand, turns to you, sweeping cloud-gray eyes down to your sandals and back up to your gaze. Hades owes us for this one, he says, laughing at his own joke. Muscle in your mother's jaw jumps, and her entire body goes rigid. You know what that means. She's about to lay into someone. And just as a note, we are not exactly gifted in social shit, so probably don't go with the top one. Oh goodness, if I'd known I'd to expect commentary on my appearance from the king himself, I'd have put in a bit more effort. So sorry. I feign genuine concern to the best of my ability, exaggerating so that the joke is clear. To be quite frank, your majesty, that was disrespectful. I'm sure there are people who would willingly endure that for your favor, but I'm not one of them. You don't let your tone become disrespectful, however. Well, that's a bit... Is fashion commentary a hobby of yours, your majesty? I'm not entirely sure how to handle something like that, but humor is a reasonably good way of diffusing the tension. Your majesty, if I may say, that wasn't very kind. To say you're confident might be stretching things, but you do want to say something. Undaunted by the rather crude commentary, I hold out an arm to stop my mother and lift an eyebrow towards the king. Is that so? I feel my eyes narrowing. I see, I reply simply. Thank you for your opinion, your majesty, I reply, not assured enough to give the comment mocking tone it deserves. Perhaps context will make my real meaning clear enough. I really have no idea what to say or do here. All I can really do is reach out to my mother, holding out an arm to block her path forward. I don't want there to be a fight over this. Which one do we want to go with? Any of them works. Let's go with, is that so? You let your voice lilt with just a touch of humorous implication, as though it contains a joke you're keeping to yourself. There's a line to walk here. Projecting self-assurance and a touch of good humor with this kind of response is intended to make Zeus look like a fool when his remark completely fails to land. But if you don't give enough, you're just going to look like you're a child playing at superiority or something. You think you managed to strike a decent version of that balance. There are a few titters, including a chuckle from your aunt and the one-legged god standing next to it. Is he standing? Festus, though you don't know him well. Zeus, for his part, looks quite annoyed, if only for a split second. You! Abruptly, the temperature drops, sending goosebumps racing up your arms. Everyone halts, Zeus in mid-sentence. A few of the gods assemble to wear troubled expressions. Many of the nymphs behind you shift uncomfortably, inching closer to each other and murmuring in hushed voices. I think I'm gonna have to get water after this paragraph. Hera tilts her head, sky eyes landing on an empty space not too far to the left of her. Perhaps now would be a good time to stop playing around, Idonius. You swear it gets even colder for a moment in a pool of shadow, sharply defined against the halcyon brightness of an Olympian late afternoon, coalesces stubbornly into the spot, rising not unlike a wave to a height similar to Zeus's own. When it falls, it leaves a god behind. I do not like being called that, he says, a rolling bass blunt in its delivery, even if not quite in its fundamental sound. Do-do-do-do. The speaker looks like no Olympian you've ever seen. His build is only somewhat slighter than Zeus's, but he shares the athletic bent of many of this place's residents. That, however, is where the similarity ends. His skin is slate gray, the tunic he wears black, and edged in only faint glints of silver. Hair as white as bones falls straight to the middle of his back, adorned by an obsidian crown and the model of thorny branches. A thick fan of lashes, the same pale hue, ring both very red eyes, bright enough not to get lost in a sharply angled face with a prominent, slightly hooked nose. About time you got here, Hermes says, a lopsided grin on his face. The god's face makes no visible change, and he remains still, gripped steady on the two-pronged polearm he carries in his left hand. I was otherwise occupied. He doesn't specify with what, and no one presses. Hera smiles, laying a hand on Zeus's arm when he opens his mouth. To what end, you have no idea, but the touch silences him. She parts her own lips, and then abruptly closes them again with the strange catches your gaze. Raising one hand to his chest, he places it over his heart and gives you a small but stately bow. Demeter's eyes round. Hermes chuckles under his breath. Though I doubt it has escaped you, he says, quiet enough that you almost have to strain to catch the words. I am Hades. May I ask your name? We have a bunch of options here that I will get to in a minute. I have to go get water because, dear God, I did not have enough water. So I will be right back, my failings. the chill game. Do. How you doing, hon? Alright, so options are give name, which is standard, which is we're going with Persephone, but we have some options down here that change the interaction. No, you may not. Embarrassingly, I don't quite catch the words. He's different than I expected. Or, I struggle to speak, overwhelmed by fear. This man is like nothing I've ever seen or known before, and something about the chill in his aura terrifies me. We're not going with that one. Basically, it's just a check on whether or not we want... Oh, yeah, Izzy, if you check my Discord, I have a poll going on. Choose one if you want. I think there's a very clear winner, though. Do. Wait, did you just... Anyway, Persephone... Oh! Hi, Mary! Hi! Do. Man and a meow, make brain work. How was stream? And everyone make sure to give Mary some love. Oh, right, and just so anyone who's new here and wants to, like, have some input on this, this is who we're talking about. This is Hades. The speaker looks like no Olympian you've ever seen. His build is only somewhat slighter than Zeus's, but he shares the athletic bent of many of this place's residents. That, however, is where the similarity ends. His skin is a slight gray, the tunic he wears black and edged in only faint glints of silver. Hair as white as bones falls straight to the middle of his back, adorned by an obsidian crown in the model of thorny branches. A thick fan of lashes, the same pale hue, bring both very red eyes. Bright enough not to get lost in a sharply angled face with a prominent, slightly hooked nose. Bleh, I spent the last 2 hours blocked. Aww. Okay. I kind of want to do the Hades romance, even though everyone voted for the... Why did everyone vote for their literal river of fire? Is it just because I wrote a literal river of fire? Well, I don't think it... Thing is, the way this kind of works is it sort of ends up not entirely locking you in. Because you can reload from a checkpoint and Yeah, we'll probably do that. But for now, boop. Your own inarticulateness makes your face heat. It's just that Hades is not what you were expecting at all, and it's sort of distracting. If he notices the reason for your preoccupation, he gives absolutely no sign of it, merely regarding you with a touch of confusion that is somehow even more mortifying. I was hoping you might grace me with your name, he repeats, enunciating clearly and carefully. Oh, right, your name. Genuinely, that is probably how I'd react if I was met with somebody who is really hot asking my name. Just, your name? I have a name? Who I got? Persephone! Your reply, basic courtesy you can do as a matter of reciprocity. Hades nods once. Thank you. It may be difficult to believe, and I certainly don't expect you to feel the same, but vague smile quirks his lips for just a moment. It's a pleasure to meet you. That sorted, everyone seems to remember what's going on here, and a minor din arises among the gathered gods. For what you can tell, some of them are upset at Hades' tardiness, others murmur that about your mother and Zeus. In all the discussion around you, you yourself seem to go rather ignored, at least until Hermes speaks to you in a low voice. While he's getting lectured, we can get out of this crowd, he says. We've got an escape plan here, but it's better if Zeus doesn't notice us leave. There's time to talk to Demeter, obviously, but we need to hurry. I really don't want to attend a party, but there's someone I need to find to say goodbye to, so I need to stay a bit longer. Hermes blows out a breath. Okay, he replies, shaking his head. But just be warned, this party is going to be the opposite of a good time. Mostly Zeus making crude jokes at the expense of you and Hades. More and more obviously the further he gets into his wine, and he hates it when people don't laugh at his jokes. Maybe be quick? That sounds unpleasant, but it doesn't change your mind. Hermes can probably see it in the way he frowns as anything to go by. Right, well, I'll find his deathliness and let him know then. Plan set, you part from Hermes and turn toward the gathered gods. Like it or not, your life is about to be completely different. Maybe there's something to be made of it, but only time is going to tell. This is the start of Chapter 1, The Underworld. After a while, most parties in Olympus boil down to the same few essentials. As far as you've seen, music, alcohol, and gossip. The last can be disguised as any number of things, of course, but as your mother has always put it, people who actually like each other socialize at smaller events than this one. These, the big ones where most everyone makes an appearance, are for politics. Several hours into your wedding celebration, which apparently started long before you or your betrothed even arrived, the wine and spirits flow freely, many of Olympus's most prominent and powerful deep into their cups. Those who linger at the fringe of power are generally more sober, sharp-eyed and assessing, moving sinuously through the crowd to place the right word in the right ears for whatever it is they aim to make of the evening. This reminds me of those cute little comic strips of Hades and Persephone. Yep, it is very similar in vibe. Night only falls upon Olympus for a few hours each day, and you are now reaching the end of the long twilight. The sky overhead deepening to gray and indigo, cloudless as it usually is. Selene has pulled the moon up to replace the sun. Helios is snoozing in his chair, several empty cups before him. The childlike Eos braids his flowing golden hair into many tiny plaits, giggling to herself occasionally. No few people have approached you to offer their congratulations. It's hard to tell if they're being sincere, considering your complete lack of experience with such large gatherings, or most of these people in general. Other than the occasional formalized congratulations, though, people seem to be largely ignoring you. At the moment, indeed, you are rather bereft of company. You suppose you could seek it out, if that's the only reason you're still here after all. It's just that the massive crowd has made her rather difficult to find. Looking around the party, you do eventually manage to spot a familiar face among a group of goddesses, and exactly the person you're trying to find. We can choose one of these 5. It's my Aunt Hestia. She's always been such a nice person, and has filled a different sort of parental role in my life from my mother's. It's my idol, Athena. I've always admired her intellect. Fuck Athena. And not in a fun way. Athena, no. It's my self-proclaimed rival, Artemis. I've never understood why she always wants to compete with me at everything, but I don't mind it. It's Hera. Well, I wouldn't call her my mentor, exactly. I have learned a lot from her. And it's Aphrodite! I wouldn't say she and I are precisely friends, but I've always enjoyed talking to her. So, one of these three, and the usual one I go with is Artemis. Because it's Artemis. I love Artemis. Do, 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 do. So I suppose the backup question is, do we want to change to either Hera or do I want to try Hera or Aphrodite? I know Aphrodite is just... Yeah, it's Aphrodite. I don't know what people expect. It is just Aphrodite. I have never done Hera's route, though. Do, 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 do. I'm leaning towards Artemis. Do, 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 do. Let's go with Artemis. The group of them seem engaged in a rather animated conversation, but as if she senses you, Artemis glances up and meets your eyes. The brief interjection to the conversation, she excuses herself and steps away to approach you. Her gait is choppy, marched-like, a frown etched into her features. Artemis wears even the smallest expression on her full face. Always has. It's you, she says, the same frown somehow suffused into the very tone of her voice, folding her slim arms over her chest. Artemis regards you from narrow, dark eyes, flicking a few tawny curls of back with a toss of her head. Something in her expression wavers, softens, though you know from experience not to call attention to it. How are you doing? The question is has almost a grudging tone to it. But the way she stamps one foot on the ground and shifts the weight gives a different impression. Dreading this. You helped me, but I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I'm still trying to decide how I feel, honestly. You lift your shoulders in a little shrug. Everyone else seems to have decided how they feel, but you're not quite there yet. There's a lot you don't know, after all. What's there to decide? Artemis asks with a hint of incredulity, gripping her biceps in her hands and wrinkling her nose. You're married to Hades, she shudders. A moment later, her scrunched brows become something almost thoughtful. I guess if you don't have any choice, you might as well take this as an opportunity to improve yourself, she declares. You might as well be able to learn something down there, and I'd hate if my rival just stopped being a challenge at anything, She nods decisively, as though this is meant to hearten you in some obvious fashion. Better than fading away, tending some field for Demeter. God, I love Artemis. Thanks? Not your rival, that's just something you arbitrarily decided. I roll my eyes. Your consideration moves me. Just you watch, you won't even recognize me next time we see each other. And thank you, Izzy, for the posture check. Rude. The expression is swiftly mirrored by your own. Oh yeah? Guess I'd better keep up my training too then. She hums a short note, then snaps her fingers. Alecto is a good place to start. You should ask her for a spar. She'll probably turn your bones to dust, but you'll thank her for it later. I guess Pyrifleckithon might be more your level if you wanted to ask them instead. Before you can formulate any kind of response to that, she's reaching for her sash, pulling free a short, sheathed knife. It's plain in appearance, clearly an item of violent utility rather than anything ceremonial or decorative. While we're talking about fighting, though, you should take this. She thrusts it into your hands. If anyone tries something you don't like, stab them. She closes her fingers over the hilt. It'll even put most gods out for a bit, but the magic will only work once, so watch yourself. God, help girls stab other people. That's what you need to do. Don't like it? Stab them. Thanks so much. Do you think I'll need it? It doesn't work that way in anyone else's hands. I appreciate the thought, but I don't need this. You should keep it. I mean, we have a chance to hug our miss. Something about the gesture moves you. Maybe it's because this was clearly something she thought about in advance. A way of offering you some measure of control and protection in a completely unknown scenario. Whatever it is, it makes you take several steps forward and wrap your arms around Artemis, who drops hers out of their tight fold, making a confused noise. Why are you hugging me? She asks, and you can hear the perplexed frown in her voice. Gratitude, you reply honestly. Very well then. She returns the hug with a single squeeze before stepping away. By now, it looks like the celebrations are well and truly winding down. Artemis clearly notices too and expels a quiet breath. Looks like this nonsense is almost over, she says bluntly. You should probably go say goodbyes or whatever, Persephone. Write me or something. With a sharp jerk of her chin, she departs. It isn't long before everyone seems to have realized that you're soon to leave, and then you're flooded by a tide of well-wishers, most of them people you barely know or have never met. It's hard to imagine all this goodwill is really directed at you, considering they likely don't know much more about you than you do about them. Before you can be completely overrun by the tide of people, though, a rescue of sort appears. Someone you know much better than this bunch. Combat teacher, magic teacher, or the storyteller. It's Halinome. Halinome pushes her way through the crowd with little effort. Then again, she is 6.5 feet tall and a centaur, so it's more or less common sense to get out of her way when she's intent on something. With an agitated sigh, she pushes several dark auburn curls out of her face and offers a hand towards you. I'm supposed to get you out of this mess, Persephone. Ready? The answer in some sense doesn't matter. You do have to get out of this crowd, and if Hylenome's here, it's probably on your mother's orders. Much better than your teacher come find you than to meet her. You nod and grasp her arm, using this leverage to get yourself out of the press of people. There's a few sounds of surprise, but you're not shocked when things die down quickly. The revelers, largely drunken focus, finding something else to fix on in short order. Hylanome isn't afraid to strong-arm the people who don't seem to notice that you need to move past them. Idiots, she mutters under her breath, hand tightening over your arm in a way you think is supposed to be bracing. Once you're clear of the crowd, you both release a breath. Hylanome grumbles something to herself, shaking her head. Anyway, kid, this is where I leave you. Lady Demeter's on her way. She pauses for a moment, considering you with a furrowed brow and troubled blue eyes. You look out for yourself, okay? The underworld wouldn't be my first choice for somewhere to live, but you've got the metal to make it work for you. You suppose she must be referring to your literal ability to take hits that should flatten you. Hopefully it does extend metaphorically as well, but you don't know. You've never been in a situation like this before. I shouldn't have to go to that for. I don't want to leave. It will be what it is. Thank you. Please take care of yourself. Honestly, I don't think it will be so bad. Your optimism isn't effusive, but tentative isn't quite the right word either. It's just, when you really step back and try to look at it coolly, rationally, you think perhaps there's not as much reason to despair as everyone thinks. For one, basically everything anyone knows about the underworld is just rumor, and those who are well aware tend to be exaggerated and have to be an agenda. And to have an agenda. It's not a guarantee that things will go well, but it's enough for a bit of hope that you're not walking into torment or whatever everyone else seems to think. The fact that I'm almost done my second thing of water already. Hanoi's brow furrows. Well, she says, drawing out the word with a bit of skepticism, then I guess I just hope you're right. That's certainly what I'm planning to do. The response, if indeed there would have been any, is aborted by a sudden call of your name, your mother. Your escort doesn't linger when Demeter has asserted herself, departing with a wave and little else. It's sort of the unspoken protocol of the household, really. A moment later, you're alone to face her one last time. You can see the mismatched silhouettes of Hades and Hermes not too far away, but they both remain politely out of earshot as your mother approaches you. Rare among the partygoers in that she looks just as put together now as she did when it began. She takes a deep breath as she comes to a stop and reaches out to squeeze your shoulder. For compromise, you know. Without a doubt, she wants to hug you, but she is aware that you don't particularly enjoy such touches. She keeps it brief, then drops her hand back to her side. I'm going to get you out of this, she says, clearly exerting effort to steady her voice. I'll get you back to Olympus, Persephone. I swear it. She swallows thickly, eyes intent on yours. Whatever you do, stay strong. Don't let them convince you it's hopeless. Remember who you are. I'm overcome with emotion, begin to cry, melancholy, yep. I don't think this will be nearly as bad as she thinks, but I'll do my best to reassure her. I nod because I know she wants affirmative, but my feelings about this are different from hers. I don't have any kind of response, I just want this part to be over. I strongly affirm that, of course, I'm still angry about this whole thing and have no intention of forgetting who I am or where my real home is. Let's go with this. Try to reassure her. You're not convinced this is a sentence to misery the way your mother seems to think it is, but this is hardly the time to argue or anything. She's worried and you want to assuage her if you can. I'll be alright, you say, offering a mild smile. Demeter nods firmly, clearly bolstered by this, if not so much by your refusal of her touch. I hope so, Persephone, and I'll work as hard as I can to get you home. Just leave everything to me. Demeter breaks eye contact and turns when a throat clears behind her. It's Hades, Hermes trailing not far behind him. With apologies, he says. Low tone, something you swear you can feel beneath your feet as much as you hear it. We do have to return to the underworld. I'm sure you're aware why lingering here is inadvisable. Demeter's expression sours outright. Save your apologies, Agisender. You take my blood from me now, but what is not yours to keep will always escape you eventually. Agisender, one who steals away all things. Red eyes blink slowly and Hades dips his chin. So it is, he acknowledges. But people have minds of their own, and Persephone's mind is neither yours nor mine to claim. Demeter tisks sharply, the finger of one hand curling into her palm. Even you can't tell whether she's considering striking him, or it's just an expression of frustration. Hades himself certainly doesn't seem concerned with it. He only stands patiently in his spot. The strange polearm you noticed earlier is back in his possession, but his hold on it is loose, relaxed. With one final loaded look at you, accompanied by a soft, strained, I love you, Demeter departs. Bye, Nightmare. Thank you for the head pats. Hades exhales quietly, then moves his eyes to you. I do regret the perfunctory nature of our departure, he says, but if I remain on Olympus too long, I will begin to taint it. This is an outcome my brother wishes to avoid. Glances at Hermes, who steps up to his side now that Demeter has taken her leave. As for transport, he continues, the word slow, considered. It is possible for me to levitate you, for lack of a better description. However, if you would prefer, Hermes can also physically carry you, which may feel more secure as a method of flight. It is entirely up to you. Doesn't really make a difference, they can choose. Whatever works for the two of you is fine. They exchange a glance, Hermes shrugs. I'll leave it to you, your deathliness. As you wish, he replies with a slight nod. Taps the butt of his polearm against the ground and you find yourself enclosed in what appears to be a transparent sphere. Reaching out to touch it, you meet something that's solid, even when you wrap your knuckles against it. Wings have their convenience, he notes, but for most purposes I prefer this. The sphere lifts, and beside you he does the same, though you see no corresponding bubble encircling him. Suit yourself, Hermes replies with a grin, unfurling his wings and leaping into the air. I will be flying in the only real way to do it. His rapid ascent is scented by a stream of joyous laughter. Hades shakes his head, though there's a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth. That'll be $85 for the head pat. Sure, here's 85 Monopoly dollars. Olympus rapidly grows smaller beneath you. The three of you pierce a cloud with a burst of chill air and moisture. It clings to the side of your sphere, at least until Drake smears the drops away. Your companions end up dusted in droplets. They glimmer in Hades' hair and against the smooth skin of Hermes' arms. But neither seem to mind. The city beneath you disappears, the only home you've ever known. Now so far away you can't perceive it, even if you squint. You began to stay curious. Perhaps not a feeling most would have expected out of you, but still, the thing that seemed to loom largest was the sense of how different this would all be. From what you've known, and certainly there are a few obvious differences between Hades and the Olympians you know, but as for how you feel right now, strikes me most is how melancholy it feels to be leaving Olympus behind. I think I might actually be looking forward to seeing the underworld. I have no idea what's coming, and as daunting as that is, it's better than feeling doomed. I'm just trying to focus on what's in front of me, moment to moment. Honestly, right now, I'm too busy trying not to look down to think about much else. I think you might actually be looking forward to seeing the underworld. It's not as though it's a place you've always wanted to go, but as Olympus becomes vanishingly small, you realize that your emotions are dominated not by what is behind you, but by what might be ahead, and not in an entirely negative fashion either. Whatever else is true, there's certainly a sense of finality to this part, even if the finality is only for now. It's really happening in a way you have to admit you weren't always sure it really would, after you found out about it. But any potential for denial is quite gone now. You have to face what is in front of you to the best of your ability. The night-dark landscape passes by beneath you, Poseidon's seas crashing against land's edge, providing you with a ribbon of moonlit sea foam by which to gauge the boundaries. It seems at once impossibly far away, and like you shift just a touch closer, you could taste the salt on your lips. After a while, you begin to descend, and the moon shifts. If anything, the gods in your company begin to relax. In some ways, you can only perceive as atmosphere, because little about their body language or mannerisms seems to change at all. You veer slightly away from the coast, and eventually the ground draws closer until you light upon it. A moment after you touch down, the bubble around you dissolves, and the two of them wait for you to regain your footing before continuing at a brisk walk. God. Why did I choose? I know why I chose this. I wanted to share a fixation, but still, choosing is something to read. My poor throat. So, this is the mortal world? I guess Hermes must make this trip a lot. Wait, is the underworld literally underground or something? I remain silent, though I'm dreading the next part of this. I study my surroundings with interest. I've never been away from Olympus before, and it's fascinating. You're walking in a fissure between two rock faces, and though you can hear the ocean crashing against a cliff somewhere nearby, your view of this is blocked. This can only be the mortal realm, which means the underworld still lies ahead. Still, you've never been even this far away from Olympus before, and even the environs seem somehow new and fresh to your eyes. You can feel the hum of life around you, muted when compared to that which tends to pervade the realm of the gods. You wonder what it will feel like in the land of the dead. The trek is reasonably short. You pass through a crack in the mountainside that you're not sure will fit Hades, but somehow it does. And then, like the passage was more magical than physical, there it is before you. The underworld. The light is dim here, too. You can't be sure if that's because you're underground, because it's night, or due to some inherent property of the realm. Tipping your head back, you do see stars. No, not stars, as high up as you are, with a vista arrayed below. You can tell you're looking at the ceiling. It's just that embedded into the obsidian and granite and other dark stones are luminous clusters of crystals. Some of them hang like abbreviated stalactites. Others are more fully set into a relatively smooth ceiling. All are in exotic shades of color, the white, silvery, the blues and purples and greens and pinks, deep and saturated. Look down, Hermes urges, and you do. First thing to catch your eye is a brilliant thread of red-orange that seems to encircle everything, flowing from some source you cannot see. You've heard of this, if only vaguely. Purification, the river of fire. Given how thin and small it seems, it's actually hard to get a sense of perspective this high up. How high are you? It seems that every attempt to gauge distance or apprehends eyes leaves you dizzy, uncertain. It's best not to do that, Hades says softly, as though he's picked up on your difficulty. Like Olympus, this place is and is not physical, and its boundaries are even less solid. You'll get a better instinct for it with time. What do you mean is and is not physical? It's surprisingly beautiful. It looks miserable. There's not a lot alive down here, is there? Is it always going to make my head look... boop. It's surprisingly beautiful. You have to admit it. It's not the golden landscape of Olympus, to be sure, but you don't get the bleak, miserable impression you were led to expect either. Both sets of eyes turn to regard you with evident surprise. Hermes' expression quickly becomes grin. That's the spirit. It's not so bad down here. You'll see. There seems to be as much orientation as there's time to do, but you're very aware that you've paused here only for your benefit in the first place. The descent is much the same as that from Olympus to ground level. By the time your feet are once more on solid ground, you can no longer see the upward bound of the realm. You wonder if it's even properly there anymore. In the distance, you can make out what seems to be a simply massive castle fortress, built into a jutting hill of dark stone, seemingly carved from its surroundings. Between it and you, however, is a city, it would seem, or at least the shell of one. Aside from the palette of colors and the strange sense of stillness that pervades here, it's not all that different from the city of the gods on Olympus. Maybe more humble on average, but you have to get closer to see. There's another river interceding, this one with a wide, flat bridge constructed across it. 2 people wait on the other side. The first is a tall, olive-skinned woman with dark hair pulled into a long tail tight on her head. Her armor is elaborate, the golden bronze color of it accented with a forest green cloak. A sword sits on her hip, a shield across her back. Her features, blunt and striking, are pulled into a scowl, one that only deepens when hazel eyes fall on you. The second person is fair, almost to the point where you worry he might be ill. Though it could well be a function of the strange lighting here. Ash blonde hair falls in gentle waves to just above his shoulders. A great cloak formed into a hood. It's draped over most of it, shadowing his elegant face and dimming the desaturated frosty blue of his eyes. He rests slightly against the white staff or pole of some kind, though there's no obvious decorations or differentiations between the top and bottom ends. Alecto and Charon, Hades says as you approach, nodding first at the woman, then the other person. Ah, right, you aren't connected yet. She and he or they, respectively. Curious, Hades' hands move along with his words, the patterns elaborate and seemingly quite precise. The one in particular seems half focused on them, though her eyes remain roughly on his face. Your party of 3 draws to a stop in front of the other 2, and Hades repeats his introductions of a more proper volume. Hands once again motion along with the words. Alecto is the Minister of Punishment, and as you are likely aware, Charon heads the Ferrymen of the Rivers. Alecto, Charon, this of course is Persephone, he says, gesturing slightly towards you. Charon dips into a polite bow by way of greeting, offering a small smile. A pleasure, he says, his tenor a few shades deeper than Hermes, with a slower, smoother feel to it. Alecto, however, doesn't budge, still glowering at you with crossed arms. She does, after a moment, loosen her hands and respond in the same gestural language, dividing her eyes for only a moment. Her eyes only a moment to Hades to do so before fixing them back anew. It's wary, the gaze, guarded and careful. I got one more drink of water left before I have to go and refill again. Oh my god. Somebody hits the Hydra button, I'm gonna have to get up. Meow. I'm pleased to meet both of you, as Hades said. My name is Persephone. I hope we can get along for the duration of my stay. I appreciate the welcome. Well, thank you, Charon, and hello to you both. I hope we'll be able to get along while I'm here. Thank you. I can't say it's a pleasure for me. Well, Electro's gaze feels heavy enough to throw you a bit, but it's certainly not something you can just ask about. Why she might be wary of you is sort of her own business. At least nothing you should get stuck into here. You don't think. Karen smiles a little more broadly, but his response is not quite quick enough to beat the other one. You don't sound very sure, Electra replies with a soft huff. And here I thought Olympians bred arrogance into all of its denizens. Electo, Hades says, gently, but not without a certain firmness. Persephone has not chosen to come here. I behoove you to remember whose fault this really is, and treat her as a guest. She presses her lips together, shifting her attention back to you and dipping her head a bit stiffly. I understand, and apologize. You're not back for now. It's hard to know to take the words exactly, but you don't think she's being insincere. It has been a rather long day, Hades adds. I plan to show Persephone to... Lecto clears her throat, gently this time, some of the accusation easing away from her expression, and moves her hands as she speaks this time. You can't, she says, giving a single shake of her head. Pyre says there's been a breach, but they aren't able to find it. Hades frowns, then clicks his tongue softly. It should have been stable, he murmurs, and then nods, turning to you. I must apologize, Persephone. I'm afraid this matter is rather urgent. One of the others will see you to your quarters. We'll meet again on the morrow. It's fine, this sounds important. Is there anything I can do to help? This is how you treat your guests, then? Is it safe for me to be here? You're not entirely sure what's going on, but it's likely that at the moment these people know more about you than you do about them. Seems only right to offer. That's kind of you, Hades says softly, but no, this is a matter that Pyre and I must handle. Hades rolls his shoulders. A pool of shadow appears at his feet, the radius well short of touching anyone else. And yeah, I'm gonna have to go grab more water. This was Faye's choice. Faye can only blame herself. I will be right back, my failings. says, pausing a moment and turning to look at you. I should say, while you're here, you should avoid eating anything that was not brought in from Olympus or the mortal world. If you do happen to partake of the underworld, you may not be allowed to return. Everyone who will prepare food and drink for you know this, but we will teach you to tell the difference for yourself as soon as possible, just in case. Shadow beneath him rises, obscuring him from view, and when it recedes, he is gone. My glass! Well, Hermes lets out a breath. I'd better get back to Olympus. They'll want to know you got here safely, so the old man and Demeter can argue about other parts of this. He rolls his eyes and grins at the others. Have fun! For you, the grin softens slightly. I'll be back pretty soon, so try not to get into too much trouble, okay? Thank you for the bonk, cries. He kicks off the ground before you can respond, shooting for the ceiling and, presumably, the exit. He's out of sight before the wind of the passage calms. This leaves you, rather abruptly, in the company of Charon and Alecto. Now that the flurry of initial activity has ceased, it registers to you how quiet it is here. There's a faint chill in the air, too, enough to prickle your skin with the first trace of goose flesh. Your eyes have adjusted quickly to the gloom, but it is certainly not bright Olympus, and you have no idea if this will change with the day-night cycle to which you are accustomed. Charon's smile is gentle, serene even. If you'd like, I could show you to your quarters now, he says. The keep is not far. I don't think I have much choice if I want to get away from these people, I guess, though. Charon seems like a nice person. I doubt this will be any kind of hardship. I don't have any preference on the matter, but I don't want to outright. If you would. I was going to let Alecto Sharpclare go, but after Early's comment, I'm feeling a bit petty. I'd rather Alecto did, actually. I think I should take this chance to talk to Alecto. We really started off on the wrong foot. If it's okay, I'd like a Honestly, this place makes me uneasy, so... I'd like all the protection I can get. Can you both? I feel a little uncomfortable. More the merrier, right? What will you both do? I'm interested in talking a bit on the way, if you don't mind. More the merrier. Charon seems nice, and though Alecto is very clearly not pleased by your presence here, you're not bothered enough by it to try and avoid her. Maybe things will get a little smoother as you get to know each other. Alecto scowls, but Charon hums with the same serenity, then inclines his head. I believe we can do that, certainly. Lifting his head, he makes a series of smooth gestures. Alecto, his hands before returning with the same. Only hers are emphatic and staccato. After a few such exchanges, she sighs audibly. Fine, she mutters, though she doesn't seem that upset about it, really. Oh yeah, just so you're aware, Hermes is the cute guy part of the cool witch and cute guy thing. You're not sure what this Karen sighs gently at her response and turns to you, gesturing up towards the fortress with the slim staff in his hands. It's not a particularly long walk, he says, offering a mild smile. You're not sure what his definition of such things is, but the place looks to be a few miles off to you. Still, you follow after them as they start forward, peering at this strange dark mirror of Olympus, where the buildings are made of wood and stone and earth, roofs thatched with grass or tiled with clay, the painted facades just saturated in the gloom. Yet the colors are there. Reds, greens, blues, yellows, every hue you can think of, just bled of their vividness. It's a little brighter in the daytime, Charon says, noting the direction of your eyes. We follow the day-night cycle of the mortal realm. Hades believes it makes the souls here more comfortable. This whole area is called the Fields. A bit misleading, as you can see, but there are proper plains outside the city, between some of the rivers. You turn to look at him again and abruptly stop short. Right in front of you is the fortress, but you definitely weren't walking long enough to... Okay. You definitely weren't walking long enough to. Karen chuckles softly, but it's Alecto who speaks. Discard your ideas about space and time, she says, a note of something knowing in her voice. Knowledge and strength of will are more reliable than those things here. They usher you through the entrance, a gate in a thick stone wall. There are no soldiers or watchers posted on the battlements that you can see. The whole place carries a similar sporific air as the city. You find yourself in a courtyard, little more than bare, dark earth with a line of meticulously fitted stone tile leading straight to what appears to be the central building. The edifice is supported in the front by a series of columns, a dozen at least, but you can see further where the building widens. Other potential entrances sitting beyond, though none of them are still quite as impressive as this one. The overall feel is imposing. The building looms forth from the hill into and upon which it was built. And from, you think, the ordinary seams of construction are missing here, as if the entire thing were carved from a slab of dark rock, unmoved. Karen and Alecto pass through two of the columns with the air of people who almost don't notice any of that. You pick up your feet. Boops. Hi, Izzy. Boopty boop boop boop. You pick up your feet again and follow, heading through a large entranceway, and then eventually into a grand hallway, lit by multicolored torch fire from sconces embedded in the walls. Karen drops his hood as soon as you pass over the threshold, and something in his bearing relaxes a little. The hues play over his pale hair and Alecto's polished armor, casting them both in a strange, ethereal pall. Down this way, he says, softly, voice not echoing even in this cavernous hall. His footsteps are similarly noiseless, though you can hear faint echoes of your own. Alecto's treads are distinct, crisp sounds, an even marched pace, almost swallowing the beats of yours. I would like to clarify something, she begins, pausing and turning to look back at you. She meets your eyes straight on, lips pursed. My comment earlier was regrettable. However, I do not trust you. Zeus has a way of scheming in layers, and I cannot know that this is not all some kind of ploy. Accordingly, I will be watching you closely. I bear you no ill will until such time as you prove deserving of it. But the same can be said for goodwill. Alecto, Karen says, turning back with evident displeasure. Is this really? Yes, she says gruffly, cutting him off. I'm not going to tiptoe around it, and if it were me, I'd want to know. She flicks her eyes to you, clearly expecting some form of response. You had the feeling there was more earlier than some petty irritation, and here it is, you suppose. The idea that you might be some sort of spy for Zeus or something is absurd, but you suppose there really isn't any way for her to know that. I understand your position, but I hope you'll try to be open to having your mind changed about me. I understand, but I'm not going to let myself be trampled. I suppose I wouldn't trust me either in this situation. I hope it doesn't stay that way, though. That doesn't mean you have to be rude to me. This isn't my fault. You can think what you want. I don't trust you either, and what do you think, Karen? Boop. I suppose I wouldn't trust me either in this situation. I hope it doesn't stay that way, though. You can sympathize with her position. She doesn't have any way of knowing how you got here, and even if you told her, you don't suppose that would be much reason for her to believe it. You do hope the two of you will be able to find a way to like each other, but you understand if that might be something of a process. Karen looks a bit unsure what to do with such a sentiment, and ends his words with a hymn. And ends his words with a hum. Alecto frowns slightly, but what it might mean is unclear. She does give you a nod, though. Acknowledgement of your words is perhaps not quite agreement with them. There is a notable pause here, several beats of silence in which no one speaks or moves. Karen breaks the natural impasse by clearing his throat. Anyway, he continues, there's quite a lot in the building, but I'm afraid there isn't enough time for a full tour right now. Is there anyone here in particular you'd like to visit tonight? Do you have any gardens? Your inclinations are often oriented towards tending to such places, and you suppose that if the underworld has any, they might be a good place to occupy yourself. Karen frowns for a moment, tapping the tip of his index finger on his pole in his hand. I don't know that I'd say so, he admits. There's the orchard, and some small plots of, I suppose you'd call it farmland, though next to Olympus, I think you'll find that little here deserves such names. Beyond that, no, it's very difficult to grow things here. Okay, then how about a patch of land I could use? You don't think that just because little grows here, not... No, it always has to be that way. That's sort of your specialty, after all. Kieran tilts his head at you. I think that can be arranged. Certainly, I'll ask Hades about having something set aside. Softly, the ferryman clears his throat. Unfortunately, I do believe we should be on our way, he says, gesturing with the pole. Your quarters are this way. At the moment, you've the wing therein to yourself. We do not have many guests here, and I'm sure you've gathered. You definitely can't imagine that many Olympians would be interested in visiting. As far as you know, the only way humans can pass the boundaries is if they're dead, in which case... Well, residents and guests are not quite the same, and you've yet to run into anyone you think of as a dead human yet. The three of you draw to a stop in front of a solid wooden door, simple geometric pattern recessed into its face. It is yours to do with as you look. It is yours to do as you like with, Charon says, stopping politely a few feet away from you in the door. Alecto looms over his shoulder, but does not interrupt him. If there are any supplies you need, just let us know. Let us know, and we'll be sure to secure them. That will be easier than when you're properly connected to Erebus, but for now, anyone can help you if you find yourself in need of something. Someone will be by to collect you in the morning, but of course, until then, your time is your own. I advise you do not leave the keep, as some parts of the underworld are dangerous for the uninitiated. Gesturing to the door, he smiles. I must depart here, I am afraid. I do hope you find something to enjoy your time here, Persephone. He looks to Alecto, who adds a slightly awkward, sleep well. She turns on her heel and stalks off. Kara follows with a brief, thin smile and a word of farewell. Face the door and turn the handle, finding that it swings open without a noise. You're admitted first into a cozy living space, a couple small couches situated in a corner with tables tucked under them ready for use. The floor is swathed in a simple but well-made blue and cream rug. A small hearth with a petite stack of split wood next to it is currently cool and empty. There's a window on the far wall and a door on the left-hand wall opposite the fireplace. Though this door is about what you expected, the bedroom is somewhat larger than yours was in your mother's home. Several rugs cover the stone floor. The window is unusually large, too. The shutters open to circulate air. It looks out into the inner courtyard, which is sparse, to say the least. A stone well stands near the middle, but its other occupants are only haggard, wilted shrubberies, grayed out and ill-looking. It is clearly not a space that anyone spends much time in, from the look of it. A further door leads to a washroom, with a spacious, sunken granite tub, along with some strange metal tubing, the purpose of which you do not recognize. You can feel the faint touch of spellwork in this room, specifically centered around the tub, the piping, and the chamber pot. Something to figure out another time, perhaps. For the moment, you return to the bedroom, noting the large bed set against the wall. Covered in white and gold, there's a sizable chest set in the front of it, presumably for clothing and such, and a mirror on the opposite wall. Your guide said the space was yours to do with as you wish, so you suppose you could request supplies to change the feel of it if you wanted. Make adjustments! Starting perhaps with the color. Vivid and bright, soft, relaxing, darker and serene. I like darker and serene. Dark. As far as colors go, you'll have to figure out what your options are soon, or whether there's a spell for this sort of thing. You've never learned one, but surely there would be. And of course, you'll add a few items here and there for comfort and convenience, but there's pretty clear first priority for you to make this in the kind of space you're comfortable inhabit. That's adding plants. I'm here to see Let's see what they have available here, whether it will be possible to get some from elsewhere. Good art. I don't need to change the rest much. What scores are just a few things here and there. More blankets, maybe a candle or two. It smells nice. Bookshelf. Plants. Lean into the nature stick. We are the goddess of spring. That settled, you close the bedroom shutters. The chest at the foot of the bed proves to contain all sorts of things in random colors and fabrics. The sizing isn't exactly right, but that's fixable enough with a spell or two, easily within your repertoire. You'll do until your things from Olympus arrive, anyway. The extra time you spent in Olympus means it's drawn quite late. You can feel fatigue pulling at your limbs. One downside to being half human is that the need for rest seems to creep up on you more often than most deities. You've little choice but to succumb. Changing for bed, you slip between the layers of your bed, barely even aware of your head hitting the pillow. The night dark landscape is broken by the conflagration ahead. You can pick out the vague shape of a ship in the flames. One of yours. Flames lick at the sails as it drifts further out into the bay, mooring tethers and anchors cut free. The tiny shapes of men, your countrymen, people you've sworn to protect and defend, fling themselves off the sides, hoping that in the water at least there still remains a chance at life. A hope. The bright sun burns overhead as you face the gleaming walls, the ringing cries of pitched battle swelling and crashing around you like the waves on the shore behind. Blood leaks slowly from a gash in your leg, old now and hastily patched by whatever cloth was nearby. It aches like an old broken heart, even as you trust it with your weight and drive forward, plunging your sword into the unprotected chest of another foe, chosen for you by a man who holds your debts, who now holds your entire small nation in his hands. The rain beats down on your back, long soaked through your armor, as the sea tosses relentlessly behind you, your remaining boats bobbing up and down, barely afloat in the kind of storm that can only be sea god's wrath. It's cold, so cold it chills you down to your bones. Even your blood feels cold now. So many wounds left without tending. Even your blood feels cold now. So many wounds left without tending. Your vision blurs. You fall to your knees. It feels like a benediction. A blessing to not have to hold yourself up anymore. How long have you raged against this moment? How hard? And yet at the end of it all, there is relief. Of all things, only one is inevitable, and it is your time. Your eyes fall closed, and you swear you could smell flowers. Turns your mouth up at the corners. Maybe. Just maybe. You wake up to the subtle shafts of life peeking through your window shutters, and sit up in bed, running a hand down your face, after the initial bleariness of the fading dream passes. Though you realize you actually feel quite refreshed. It was probably the right call to turn in early, especially considering that you might soon be summoned. Why don't we change up music? This kind of fits. Initial bed. No sooner have you rolled out of bed, freshened up and dressed, than you hear a knock on the door. Pardon me, but I'm entering the antechamber, a voice calls, and you do indeed hear the outer door opening. I brought breakfast, mortal realm ingredients only. You exit to the same room to find a short, stocky figure with a shorn head and elaborate gold and silver paint adorning their eyelids, brow, and the sides of their scalp. They smile, dipping their chin, the strands of their earrings chiming faintly together. I'm Dia, they say, straightening promptly. Hey, if you please, consider me your assistant for now. Gesture at the tray, which has been set down on one of the tables, pulled from beneath a couch. Thank you, Dad. I take a seat and eat. There's no point in not eating after all. You're hungry and the food looks delicious. Pancakes and honey with a small bowl of yogurt, berries, and a glass of water. They smile, clasping their hands behind their back. My pleasure, they reply. Clearing their throats softly, they continue. Please note that we are to be at Lord Hades' study within the hour. There's a contract to sign, you understand? A what? And you're to lead me there, I suppose? I sort of figured there would be. Thanks for letting me know what exactly the terms of the contract should have a say. Oh, great. Remain silent. Boop, sort of figured. It's not really an uncommon thing with arrangements of this sort, even if there are other things about the circumstances that are a little more unusual. The underworld bit, for one. Era smiles. I've never really understood that kind of thing, but for what it's worth, I'm sure you'll get fair terms. They lift their shoulders in a small shrug. Perhaps you will. Boop-a-da-doo, boop-a-da-boop-boop-boop-boop. They excuse themselves to wait outside while you are prepared to leave. When you determine that you are, or close enough, you feel them down a maze of corridors, past the entranceway from last night and through what now seems to be a rather busy administrative section of the building. People are seated outside in what seem to be various offices, and larger groups gather in more centralized receiving rooms, talking amongst themselves. If these are the dead, they look much as they must have in... If these are the dead, they look here much as they must have in life. Humans of all shapes and sizes, as solid and real to your sight as any of you might find in the mortal realm. They feel strange, but you cannot say if this is a feature of their being dead or their being human, having nothing to compare it to. Few seem to pay you or Dad much mind at all, and your guide is equally indifferent to them. Apparently all this business is as usual in the underworld. Eventually your guide stops in front of a large, dark, wooden door. It is much like every other wooden door you've passed, bearing no special emblems or labels to set it apart. Dara knocks confidently. My lord, I brought Persephone. Thank you, Dara. Please come in. That particular baritone is easily identifiable as Hades. At the prompt, Dara gives you a small nod, opening the door and standing aside for you to enter. They do not follow. It is a simple space, rendered in dark colors with one whole wall of bookshelves. Hades sits with his back to an open window at a large desk. He is, presently, accompanied by two others. Neither of them quite as tall as he is seated, though they're both standing. The first is in front of the desk and turns slightly as you enter, flashing a smile marred by 3 long scars on the left side of their face. You get the impression of bright golden eyes and an abundance of freckles. Oops, guess I'm taking too long to report here. They wince, turning back just as abruptly to face Hades again, setting chin-length ginger curls askew. Should I maybe come back later? Actually, says the other, pulling a few rose-pink braids forward over one shoulder. Karen says he's being held up, so why don't you stay? We're going to need a second witness when Sticks in the Mud gets here. The redhead looks to Hades for confirmation. He nods shortly, standing politely as you cross the threshold into the study. The one with the pink hair sits a hand on a full hip, studying you with evident interest. Though her is the obvious guess anyway. Complexion is dark. The way she's adjusted her hair makes stippled patches of paler skin apparent on her right side, and on her face and neck as well as where her hair is shorn off on that side of her head. So you're the consort whore. You're the consort whore. Words. So you're the consort. We've all heard of you. Persephone of Olympus. But I have to admit, I've been particularly curious since all this started. Yep, so just so you're aware, the redhead, in case it isn't obvious, is the lake of literal fire. Is the river of literal fire. They are adorable. And yeah. I'm not the consort intentionally, I assure you, I reply icily. Why? Did you want the spot instead? Is that a problem? I'm the consort for now, I suppose. Well, let me know what you decide. I don't want to disappoint anyone. You heard of me before? Go with, is that a problem? She blinks. No, of course not. She replies, her tone warm. If you're worried about more of us taking a cue from Electo, you needn't be. Hades' attention shifts briefly to the door, and the others follow suit immediately. No sooner have you done the same than when a tall, thin woman with raven black hair sweeps into the room, a scroll tucked under her arm. Behind her trails a small child, a girl of... well, if she were human, you'd think her about 7 or 8. She has snowy white hair kept in place with a silver circlet of laurels, the palest complexion you've ever seen, and amaranth pink eyes. Well, at least you made the contract review easy, the tall woman grumbles, though I hardly think this is what His Majesty had in mind when he told you to draw one up. Good, Hades replies softly. Excuse me, Persephone, for the belated introductions. This is Hecate, sets a large hand on the pink-haired woman's shoulder. Who is she? In front of me is Pirithophilaction. Who is they? For the love of... just call me Piri, please. They make a complicated expression, but it turns into a smile and a wave. And I am Styx. She, the tall woman, introduces herself, shooting rather hostile glances at Hades. Here to oversee this contract business. Let's get to it. I don't have all the time in the world. You have enough for this, Hades replies patiently, placing a large hand on the little girl's head as she moves to his side. And this is Macaria, my daughter. Hello, Macaria says. It's nice to meet you. She bunches up her little hands in her gray tunic, making a rather good go at a polite bow for someone of her apparent age. I thought it would be good for the two of you to meet, Hades explained. Chances are you'll run into one another from time to time. It's certainly news to you that Hades has a daughter. No one's ever mentioned that to you before. I'm admittedly not fond of children in the least. Nope. I like children well enough, but they make me a bit nervous. They're just delicate. I don't particularly think differently of children from everyone else. Some are great, others certainly not. I love kids. I've only had limited experience with them, but it's usually been great. One or two of your mother's household had their own recently, and you've always been delighted to babysit, or things like that. Wonder if you might have a chance to spend time with Macaria. It doesn't sound like it's expected of you, which is nice, but hopefully you can make friends with her regardless. It occurs to you that you should greet her, at least. Hello, Macaria. It's nice to meet you too. Yes, hello. I don't mean to be a bother, but can we please get to business? I nodded. Once in Macaria by way of greeting, I nodded patiently, hoping matters will continue. Move on quickly. Hello, Macaria. It's nice to meet you too. It's easy, really, to greet her politely and directly. She's no less of a person than anyone else in the room. And even if she is a particularly young one, it makes her smile at you and she nods in return. Styx, clearly annoyed for how long this matter is taking, even if it's barely been 5 minutes since you entered the room, clears her throat again. Let's get to the main matter at issue, shall we? Promptly, she pulls open the scroll she's holding and sets it down on a large empty spot at the center of Hades' desk. The writing consists of a single line. For such time as the undersigned remain bound by covenant of marriage, both shall legally reside in the underworld. Wait, that's it? Hang on, does legally reside mean I can never leave? You're really not obligating me to do anything? Well, this is a relief. Offer no comment. Wait, that's it? You're really expecting, well, more to say the least. The single condition obligates you to nothing more but a place of residence. Very broadly construed. That's it, Hades confirms. Sliding the contract towards him, Hades takes up a read. Fixing his name to the first of the empty spaces without needing the pause to re-ink the Implement. Oh god. Beneath his name, he writes his pronouns, then his title, God of Death. He flips the paper around so you can see it and offers you the implement. Our central record system keeps track of those, Hecate says, nodding at the place Eddie signed. Pronouns, so if you need or want to change anything later, it's really simple and people will know, if that's a concern anyway. It's easy enough to understand. You fix your name and pronouns to the document as well, along with your title. I almost expected to have to sign in blood, you remarked, setting the read down. Hecate chuckles. Blood? How charmingly traditional. Alas, the presence of our dear Styx makes any such binding rather unnecessary. Ever so pleased to be of service, the woman drawls. The witnesses, such as they are, sign their names next. When everyone's finished, Styx reaches forward and snatches up the scroll, giving it a glance before she rolls it up and promptly disappears. To Erebus with it, then, she says with a very perfunctory nod. She departs, leaving the four of you. Barry shrugs, catching your eyes a little grin. Welcome to the Underworld, eh? I think you'll like us. Chapter 2, Among the Forgotten. In a few moments, everyone is cleared out of the office but yourself and Hades. With a quiet sigh, the Lord of the Dead resettles at the desk, gesturing towards one of the chairs in front of it in clear invitation. So now comes the question. Do I abide by the poll or just kind of do whatever I want? Do, 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 do. Well, thank you. If you'd like to invite me to stay, you can at least use extra words. I find myself fascinated by even the small movement, and only belated realize what the gesture means. I nod simply and take a seat. Finally, a chance to talk properly. Camp feeling a little nervous as I take my seat and start to fidget. I do find the Hades romance infinitely cute. Problem is, I also very much like the Peres romance as well as Hermes and Hecate's. All of them are good. But do I limit myself to being constrained by democracy? Nah. I find myself fascinated even by... we can always come back if people get too upset. I find myself fascinated by even the small movement, and only belatedly realize what the gesture means. For being of such dimension as his own, Hades moves with a sort of reserved, patient grace. There's an elegance even in something as economical as a gesture of invitation. Invitation! Right, invitation to sit, which you should absolutely do now. Sneaking a glance at his face as you do, aware that your response was quite belated, but if Hades has noticed this, he gives no sign of it. Clearing his throat, the god of death drops his eyes to the surface of his desk, then lifts them seemingly with great effort back to yours. I should perhaps begin by making something clear that, to my discredit, I have allowed to remain implied for too long, he says. Lifts a hand, then hooking the fingers of his left over the place between the right shoulder and neck. His thumb takes up a tapping rhythm on his collarbone, light and even, and his face settles into a pensive expression. I have, he begins, then pauses, frowning. Actually, I think... Reload from last checkpoint, that should just take us... Yep. Oh, thank you. I want to do the Hermes one, because it is actually rather cute. Clearing, blah blah blah. I have, he begins, then pauses, frowning. I hate putting this in terms of beginning with myself. You are... God damn it. Decisions! Oh, oops. Decisions. I really wish I didn't have choice paralysis. It would make my life so much easier if I could just stick with a choice. Make a choice and stick with it. Yeah, we'll go with the 80s one. Okay, he lifts a hand, sounds into Quincy. I have, he begins, then pauses, frowning. I hate putting this in terms beginning with myself. You are... He hesitates, then redoubles. You are free of Ow. Thank you for the bonk, Christ. What was the bonk for this time? Or is it just a timing bonk? The schedule of bonking must continue. You're free of expectations here. You are who you wish to be, and you do what you wish to do. You have no obligation to me nor anyone else. Live by the laws of the underworld, and you may live as you wish. Captain, I'm relieved to hear that, and manage a small nod. Thank you. I knew he wasn't the sort of to make unreasonable demands, but it is nice to hear, I guess. I had a guess that'd be how it was. I roll my eyes. I'm glad you can manage basic decency. I hesitate, unfamiliar with such freedoms. You really don't mind what I do? I should have at least some duties as consort, though. I attempt humor, but can't help that the words come out slightly bitter. What? Am I not attractive enough or something? You really don't mind what I do? You're not quite sure how to handle that. On some level, it seems too good to be true. On another, overwhelming. You're used to life being regimented. All of its larger decisions made by someone else. Someone who very much minds. Hades leans back in his chair slightly, still tapping his clavicle. Please do not take my words to mean that we do not care, he says slowly, brow furrowing slightly. What I mean to say is, you are welcome here. Whoever you are and whatever you choose to occupy yourself with, he frowns slightly, then adds, well, I suppose unless your hobbies are truly heinous, but I doubt somehow that this is the case. Hades purses his lips. Also, now that I have had some time to think on it, I've realized several things. Firstly, you may not be as informed as I am about how all of this, he gestures with his free hand to indicate you and the surroundings, came about. It is an oversight that I would like to rectify. If you will permit me, later than you deserve, but I hope better than never. He regards you with slightly tilted head, and though his features seem given to a rather flat, resting expression, you can sense sincerity there. So this was Zeus's idea, right? Your mother hadn't intimated as much, but she also seems to think Hades is or was complicit in it. He dips his chin slowly. Yes, I believe his main aim was to agitate Lady Demeter, but he rarely does things with only one target in mind when he is at his scheming. No doubt he meant to bother me as well, he pauses, and his eyes widen slightly. Please do not take that to mean I think he has succeeded. I am bothered by the circumstances, but not by you. You thought you'd be bothered to deal with me? And he sighs quietly. It is something he enjoys reminding me. That he is Lord of Olympus and as such technically capable of interfering in my life, and also that, he purses his lips, that my company is not desirable and so must be forced upon others. He shakes his head faintly, rippling the pale sheet of his hair. I regret you were involved in such a thing. The silent bonk, then. Do you have any idea how long this is going to last? Hades blinks slowly. I suspect until Zeus grows bored of the gambit. If it is of any consolation to you, the less either of us acts like it bothers us, the faster he will tire. Though I fear in this respect the greater share of the burden is your mother's, and she is not the kind to act like it doesn't bother her when it comes to you. If I had to guess, he says, I would suppose perhaps a year, maybe slightly less. A small line appears between his brows. We will, of course, all do what we can to make it as tolerable as possible, but the underworld is the underworld, and I fear some amount of shock is perhaps inevitable. Why did you agree to this anyway? Can't help but be curious. You have difficulty believing someone of his stature could certainly be strong-armed into such an arrangement, even by his brother. Hades hesitates. I was led to believe that it might be better than not, he says, pursing his lips. For you, I know I have no right to make such judgments, but the decision was placed in front of me. Take it or leave it, and I chose. Better for me how? He doesn't seem to have the same inflated sense of his own importance as some people, so you don't think he's saying it from something like that, which must mean he has a real reason for the belief. The god in front of you is quiet for several moments. At length, he speaks. I should say I cannot guarantee this, but it was made clear to me that if I did not agree to Zeus's plan, someone else would. And your choice in that matter would have been as non-existent as it is in this. No one in particular, granted, he was intentionally vague on that point. But he seemed to believe you would find it similarly unpleasant, at best. During the processional, someone used a spell on me. Was that you? Figured now's a good chance to ask about it as any, and you're undeniably curious. The voice you heard definitely wasn't as deep, but then if someone can turn themselves invisible, they can probably make themselves sound different too. Yes, I apologize if it was intrusive. I noticed some familiar signs of sensory overstimulation and did for you what I do for myself in the same circumstances. Appreciate it. That magic was amazing! It was intrusive, but I recognize the intent. We're not to be assisted in such situations, just don't ever do it again. I can handle myself, and I will. That magic was amazing, you must be so talented. It was helpful too, of course, but at the moment the sheer subtlety of it is what interests you more. He clears his throat a touch awkwardly. Not especially, he says. It is only that typical practice is poorly adapted to my needs, and so... He grimaces, obviously consciously stopping himself from elaborating. In any case, I am gratified it did not offend. That's all I need to know. You're clear enough on the circumstances, for the moment. There's no reason to rehash anything else. Hades releases a quiet breath. In that case, please let me take the opportunity to apologize for something different. Lecto was unkind to you upon your arrival here. I have since spoken to her about it. If she or anyone else gives you any further trouble, please be aware that you can bring that issue to me and it will be handled. You are my guest, and though perhaps we have not made the best of first impressions, everyone here can and will treat you like it. I understand, it's a little difficult adjusting something like this. I'm not the only one in a new situation. I didn't try and reconcile with her in time. Why didn't you speak to her about it right away? Do you think there will be further trouble? I'm not really looking to cause problems here. For anyone. I suppose we'll have to see about that. Yep, that's the fake answer. There's a note of caution in your voice, something you can't quite smother. I'm not really looking to cause problems here for anyone. And he seems to pick up on it if the slight softening of his expression is anything to go by. I do not anticipate such, he says gently. I have made it clear that you are my guest. Those you most often interact with are good people in their hearts. Some of them have rough edges, but none of them mean you ill. For a few heartbeats, there is silence, and you can tell Hades is thinking rather intently about something. Something that has to do with you, for the contemplative narrowing of his eyes in your direction. I don't know how to ask this, he admits after a moment, nor whether I have the right, but may I inquire as to how you are doing, all told? Seems to be mostly referring to what you know now, about how it is you wound up here. But you suppose it might also be a question about how comfortable you are now that it's happened. Glad to be here. It's not hard to prefer something to Olympus for me. I just want to be done with this and go home. I'm grateful for what you did in that situation, but I really hate Zeus right now. Yep. You had no right to agree to this. I absolutely would have preferred anyone else. Someone else. Anyone else. As long as it's only a marriage on paper, I can wait it out. I hate that he just gets to do whatever he wants with people's lives. What about you? Does this mean... Honestly, I'm kind of glad it happened. I've never been this free in my life. Actually, I'm not upset at all. The underworld's really interesting so far, so at least there's that. This might sound odd, but thank you for what you did. Maybe this seems trivial next to everything else, but I'm having trouble adjusting to the environment itself. It's very empty of life compared to what I'm used to. Boop. It leaves you a little unsettled and honestly maybe a little depressed and you're not quite sure what to do about it. It's not trivial at all, Hades replies softly, a concerned furrow on his brow. I'm sorry to hear it, and I'll speak with some of the others to see if there might be a solution anyone can think of. So to bring you some relief, I cannot imagine it would be easy for a life deity to adjust to residing here. It leaves things a moment. You think perhaps indifference to the topic, but his posture straightens. In any case, he says slowly, you are here now, and this does necessitate certain precautions. To begin with, the underworld is not inherently harmful to you. Simply existing here is not going to... He pauses, one side of his mouth pulling. If you are concerned that your presence here or proximity to me will render you mortal or otherwise stain you, you need not be. I would not, suffice to say, it is not your concern. It is not a concern. Releasing a soft breath, he pushes on with what seems to be a somewhat rehearsed script from the way he pauses occasionally as if to remember what comes next. And the flatter delivery compared to what are clearly more spontaneous additions or corrections. However, there are dangerous places within it, for example, those places where our prisoners are kept, and other things you will need to know. To that end, I have arranged for you to spend time with some of the other residents to get an idea of how it all works, so you can decide if you wish to live while you reside here. I hope you do not find the thought too disagreeable. I have to admit, I'm not the most comfortable with new people, but I understand. Of course not, I'm happy to meet new people. I welcome the opportunity to learn about it, actually. Wait, do people actually think being around you makes them mortal? Sounds like it would be a drain on my time. Wait, have you understood and accepted that he has what he has to say about the learning? It's fine and probably to be expected, all things considered, but what you're really stuck on is the idea they might have believed yourself not only able, but likely to become mortal in his presence. You've not heard that one, Hades asks, his tone somewhat dry. And of course I went and ruined it by telling you. Suffice to say that because of certain capabilities I have developed, some Olympians believe I am able to make them mortal, and furthermore that I gradually do so simply by being present. This is a misapprehension about what my power actually does. Well, you can't help but wonder what capabilities he has that have led people to be thinking that. Is it just because he's the embodiment of death? Lastly, for now, Hades continues, drawing a deep breath, I would like to take this opportunity to connect you to Erebus. I will feel a little strange at first, but it makes living here much easier. And safer, for that matter. I assure you the process is reversible as well. Fair enough to know that this is something the Underworld residents do, even if it would seem the temporary ones. Establishing the connection is easier if I can touch you, he says. However, that is not necessary and is therefore entirely at your discretion. And we will continue when I get more water. I'm starting to lose my voice, actually, so I'm not sure how much longer this stream is gonna go. Returned my feelings. So, extend hand with smile, grimace, no expression, feeling a flutter in my stomach. I remain as I am. I take his hand and set it on my shoulder with a sly smile. This won't do anything strange to me, will it? Yeah, you can be an absolute monster in this at times. And it is fully, just... Basically, you could just be a Karen now that I think of it. Anyway, I think I decided on Hades. It's not entirely unlike the first time you saw him, really. There's just something about him that makes you feel strange. His toots only fractionally before generally taking it in his own. Get the impression he may be more wary of you than you are of him, which is interesting considering just who you're dealing with. Nevertheless, his hand engulfs your own, and you note that his skin is unusually cool to the touch. It takes a few moments, but then something shifts and you suddenly feel more aware. It is not a sensory awareness precisely, it's almost closer to your estimation of where your limbs are. The kind of thing that's usually present, but not the object of focus. The difference isn't about your limbs, but rather the underworld itself. Your breathing is actually easier now, and you detect that the connection has brought you into harmony with your surroundings. Almost like you were a discordant note in a song that now you've been nudged into a fitting pitch. You get the strangest sense that, if you so desired, you could reach through something you can't quite describe and find things. Panic, nod curtly. Feel weird. Gape in amazement. Is this something you made? Or is this how everyone here perceives things? This magic is amazing! The Empire way did it, and there's a sense to which feels centered in your head. Though you're not sure if that's quite right. Hades' lips twitch. You can stop feeling it if you want. It can be banished and summoned at will, the awareness. Or the dead pauses, allowing you to adjust as necessary, then continue in a soft tone of voice. As mentioned, I've arranged for you to meet, with the others over the next few days. Perhaps by then you'll have a sense of how you wish to spend your time here. He seems hopeful of this. If you're reading his admittedly subtle expressions correctly, and with whom, as the case may be, please rest assured that I shall take no offense if you prefer to avoid me altogether after all of this. I might not actually do that, though. The situation is bizarre, to be sure, but Hades seems kind of friendly from what little I can read of him. I might take him up on that. He seems decent enough, but that doesn't mean I can trust him or anything about this. And Hades seems kind of friendly from what little you can read of him. Maybe this won't be something you have to worry about in particular, which is good because it sounds like there's going to be plenty else to worry about. Your host rises from his chair, seeing you politely to the door and giving you brief instructions on how to let Erebus guide you, should you wish it. Armed with more information, if little else, to make your way back to your room. The next few days should be quite interesting. For better, or worse. The next morning, you finds you out and about already. It would seem the orientations you were promised is proceeding without delay, though you're not entirely certain yet what this part is meant to be about exactly. Chris! Yes! Go! Question! Yay! What is Chris's question? What had been nothing more than a glimmering ribbon on the landscape when you first crossed into the underworld now lies before you in its uncanniness. It does, in fact, seem to be a river, in that there is water in it of some sort, but the surface of that water is on fire. Red, orange, yellow, even in shades of violent pink. Do you like Final Fantasy? Then the flames. I do? I like some of them. I have not played a lot of them, though, is the thing. I think I've played 4? The one with lightning I played. That's kind of it. Most of the rest of my Final Fantasy experience is honestly just I started them but never finished them. Okay, Aiden wanted to know. Okay. The ruler of this most particular body of water sets their hands on their hips and turns towards you. And we get to choose our height. We can be 6'2" to 6'7", 5... God damn it, I just want to be short. 5 feet. Below 5 feet. Various to look down and make eye contact with you. Something that almost seems to throw them off a little. Perhaps they're used to most people being taller than them. It's pretty neat, right? They ask, gesturing to the river. The motion of their hand warps and twists the shapes of the flames a little, though the motion didn't generate nearly enough air to do so naturally. They frown. Brows furrowing. Don't mind that part. I don't understand why it does that, honestly. I huff softly, amused. What, are you new or something? Are you in charge of it? It seems like you should know if that's the case. Take a few steps back. Just tell me what do you know about it? A shrug, confidence not a problem. I still don't really understand how water can be on fire either, honestly. I huff softly, amused. What, are you new or something? You give a comment to jocular tone, but Piri nods. Yep, Hecate says I'll figure it out eventually, but I've been doing this for a few years now, and I still haven't. Maybe I'm just slow or something? I don't know. And they turn their attention back to the flames for a bit, brow furrowing. There's some stuff I can explain, but I don't know. Just sitting here talking seems a little boring, right? Do you want to spar while I do? They regard you with a clear hope in their expression, the beginning of a grin tugging at their lips. For not to, don't really like fighting. Eloquent of barbarian suggestion, absolutely not. Sure sounds like fun, as long as we're not in actual danger. I'd love to vent some frustrations. Yeah, okay, why not? You pursue up the thought. Perry hums, clearly a bit disappointed, but they nod nevertheless. Not a problem. In that case, let's sit down near the water, shall we? It won't burn you, don't worry. Perry leads towards the riverbank, pausing you at the edge of the grassy part. Grass is perhaps the correct word, though it bears little resemblance to the same stuff on Olympus. It's more gray than green, only faint hints of the latter color in it. Fury themselves is a riot of color comprehensively, from the bright ginger of their hair to the warm tones of their bronze skin and molten gold eyes. They flop down onto the grass with only a vague modicum of grace, and pat the spot next to them in obvious invitation. Sit gingerly. More grace than they took theirs, sitting neatly. Fury huffs softly, then offers you a little grin. By all means, relax if you want, they say. Since you don't want to spar, I'm just going to occupy my hands while we talk. Helps me focus. Fury reaches into the pouch at their waist, throwing what seems to be a length of silver wire attached to a small spool of the stuff, and some kind of cutting implement, which they use to break the length of the spool with an almost surprising precision. Glance back at you and run the pitched finger and thumb along the wire several times. So, there's really not a lot to explain, I guess. The river is a defense system. It's meant to keep people out, not in. The in is more Lex area. Sounds like an important job. I laugh softly. Well, I suppose it's pretty important, sure, but most of the time nothing happens. The underworld's pretty well hidden, so not too many people find their way down here. But occasionally some idiot on Olympus tells a worshipper where it is, and I get to handle those people. Small shrug accompanies the statement. Fire seems to have softened in Perry's hold, and they take to bending it and beginning at one end, occasionally using their largest finger as a gauge how certain curves should work. I guess I'm like a guard, really. Sometimes Kerberos would come out to watch with me, but I'm not sure how good he is at it. They narrow their eyes thoughtfully. He's much scarier than me, but also a huge puppy. People could get past him with food or pats, I bet. It's fun to hang out with him, though. Sometimes he carries me around on his back, and I feel very impressive. They grin. Gross? And you lift an eyebrow. Oh, you haven't met him yet. He's the boss man's dog. Huge, with 3 heads. You'll definitely know him if you see him. Really friendly and as smart as most people. They manipulate the wire a bit more. It takes shape into a ring, strands twisted upon themselves in a flowing pattern. Very clicks their tongue, though, shaking their head and sliding it off their finger to take apart again. Anyhow, that's basically it. I patrol the perimeter when it seems necessary, do upkeep on the river whenever there's a breach. It happens sometimes because I'm still pretty new at this. That's about the long and short of it. Guard duty, but I work for the best people. They smooth the wire repeatedly with their fingers, as if it's a tick, or something that helps them think. I'm not the best at this yet, but I've already learned a lot more since I came here. Everyone's been really nice about helping me get used to the job. I can't really imagine doing anything else, you know? The job of being the River of Fire? That's the one! Perry replies with a bright smile. Suits me, right? I like being the first line of defense. It makes me feel like I'm part of something important. They nod as if to reinforce the point. Some of the powers are pretty neat too, I have to admit. You're helped with that. Everyone can't really mean literally everyone. The underworld is home to training? Well, there's Lex, of course, Perry says. And Garon's my rival. I keep trying to get them to fight me, but they only do sometimes. They're really good. Boss gives me pointers sometimes, too. A seemingly permanent smile turns a little sheepish at that. He doesn't even use weapons and can hand me my... They clear the throat. He can beat me with one finger, I swear. They narrow their eyes faintly for a moment. Oh, and I play tag with Feather Guy. That's kind of training, too, since he's so fast. Fair enough, I suppose. Perry hops back onto their feet, looking as if they just remembered something. I should probably get you back to the keep by now. You can come visit me out here whenever you want, though. They gesture back towards the looming fortress on the hill, visible only from where you are. Oh, and thanks for the talk. I wouldn't mind another if you ever feel like it. Find yourself now. Pierre's warm and easy to talk to. I can see us becoming friends. Yep. Find yourself Pierre's warm and easy to talk to, and you can. But you know, there's still plenty for you to do today, and you probably shouldn't keep them from their job either. Still, you can't help but feel a little more optimistic about everything as you go. I think I'm gonna hit the 3-hour mark, and I think that's gonna be my limit. I overestimated my ability to read continuously for hours. Well, read aloud. The room so named is that afternoon you find yourself in the library. The room so named is simply massive. You're not even sure if it fits in the fortress exactly, for it must be at least quadruple the height of an ordinary room. Wooden ladders lean up against the inbuilt pale stone shelves, stuffed to the brim with scrolls and books, bound in materials from sheepskin to wood to cloth. So, this won't be continued. I might? I kinda want to, but we'll see. But it might be like more like a short stream thing. At the 3-hour mark, I might switch over to something else. Rather than end stream. No, my voice is starting to go. Boo! Cloth, the smell of parchment and papyrus is heavy on the air, along with the sharper tang of ink. Rows and rows of shelving recede into the depths of the room, most of them labeled with numbers, though you have no idea what they mean, as they aren't simply a numeric sequence. The floor is covered in thick rugs of varying colors. More than one break in the shelving proves host to a nest of cushions and blankets. A small light appears in the air in front of you, a soft violet in color, and from it issues Hecate's voice, recognizable from the day before in Hades' office. If you'd be so kind as to follow this, I'm in the back. The little sphere of light leads you through the somehow labyrinthian sequence of shelves and stacks, and you're fairly sure that through at least one arched doorway also. Hecate is set up, you can only really call it a workstation, and the air smells sweet for a while before you even spot her. Planted behind a table, part of a U-shaped arrangement of them, built into and seemingly from the walls and floor around them, in an area near but slightly apart from the nearest texts. Varying metal arms and support systems hold containers and vessels of materials ranging from glass to steel to wood. Some with piping connecting them. Several more float in the air, suspended by what seems to be nothing at all. Previous reading has brought you in contact with at least the concept of alchemy, though you don't know much about it. It's supposed to be a fairly complicated art, and generally is considered to be very fussy for rather little in return, given that what alchemists can do for the most part more easily accomplished with deific power. Catty looks up at you, offering a small smile. Welcome to my workshop, Persephone. Some kind of stuffy. This is amazing. This guy's wonder scrolls across your face as you observe the various floating vessels, trying to sort the plant ingredients by scent. Catty's smile grows slightly, and she waves a hand, setting the components around her to motion. It's nothing, she says in a soft tone. You think she's pleased by the compliment, though. Everything in the air returns to some kind of physically supported rest. Flat-buttoned vessels clink softly against the stone table's surface. Vials nestle themselves in wall-mounted metal rings. Dry ingredients return to the containers they issued from, which shut with wooden clacks or metallic clinks. Clearing her throat slightly, the goddess behind the workbench leans slightly forward, bracing her hand on the edge of it and inclining her weight into them. Erebus tells me Hades sent you here on the tour, yes? At your affirmation, she nods a little, a pink braid falling forward over her shoulder. Well, as you might be able to infer, I'm a scholar of sorts. I do research and maintain what of the magical systems here do not require Hades' direct touch. She grins a little. Of course, as such, I'm very familiar with the collection. If there's anything you'd like to learn, I'm sure I could set you in the right direction, magical or otherwise. She tilts her head a bit, spilling several more braids forward to join the rest. Join the first. May I inquire first as to your academic background? Well, you reply, seeing no reason not to give an honest background. It's about as extensive as it could be, though I'm not sure how that compares. I've learned a little about history, magic, politics, things like that. She hums, nodding along. What of the natural sciences? Botany mostly, some ecology. It's sort of what my mother's entire household is oriented around, but I only know very limited things about alchemy or physics. Ketty nods. That makes sense, I suppose. There's not much of a... She furrows her brows of trying to decide what phrasing she wants. My impression is that the Olympians are a little more territorial about their domains than we are down here. If you're interested in expanding your knowledge, we certainly have the resources for that. She pauses there, tilting her head fractionally as if studying your face. If there is some direction in which you would like to expand your repertoire of knowledge, this is about the best place in the world to do it. Giving you a wry smile, she adds, of course, you need not be here for anything so serious as all that. There's a fair amount of plain old fun to be had, too, if you're of the mind for such things. Healing, general knowledge, real fun. Can I have something practical? Do you have anything about magic? Maybe for people who've never felt quite like they're using theirs the right way? It's a difficult topic to broach because the feeling at the center of it isn't one you can explain any more concretely than that. The right way, she asked, the question almost musing, her eyes keen on yours. It's hard to explain, you admit. It just feels like everything I've learned how to do is a corner of what there is, and the rest is just out of reach, but it feels like I need to know those things too, or it won't feel right. Hecate rolls one of her braids between her thumb and forefinger back and forth as she considers you. It's a quiet scrutiny, but you get the sense she isn't so much looking at you as through you in this moment, or perhaps it's something you can't see. Well, she says slowly, we may eventually want to try learning some chthonic magic. It's different in basic nature from the Olympian kind, and if you feel that something is missing, you may be like Hermes, capable of drawing from both sources. But you should start slowly and be careful. You would not yet be able to properly cast such magics, and even the attempt can be perilous in certain ways. It is inherently more chaotic and unpredictable than the Olympian kind. She turns her wrist in an elegant motion, laying her hand out in the air in time for a book, bound in a thin sheet of some kind of metal with leather joints to land in it. Fingers curl over the spine, hand dropping slightly as she takes its weight before offering it across the work table to you. Try reading this first and tell me what you think. I warn you though, do not try casting anything in here without proper supervision. It may make it impossible for you to return to Olympus. After you've taken the reading material from her hand, Hecate sets it on one hip, crossing her other over her body to grasp her wrist. She tilts her head with a considering hum. Anyway, she says, if you'd like to spend the rest of your time here reading, I'd understand. I'm sure Hades has given you the basics, but if there's anything you want to know more about, just say so. I'm connected to Erebus now. I'm really interested in how Deifictamine came to be attached to no one in particular. You figured you might be the person to ask for information. Yes. A piece of magic I am particularly proud of, Hecate nods once. Always works the most important spells with assistance. Such an alteration of reality would not have been possible for me without Hades' assistance. Nor for him without mine. I technically bent the rules of the universe a little, but the domain Erebus does belong to someone. Namely, every someone connected to it. Congratulations, you are the partial holder of the domain of shadows. How does it feel? Pretty good, I think. Hecate smiles, the expression pulling one side of her mouth a little higher than the other. Good, I'm glad. We put a lot of work into making it comfortable, but by all means, if something seems off to either let me or Hades know right away. Gah. Tell me about yourself. You figure it can't hurt to know someone who seems pretty central to things around here. Hecate chuckles, warm and rich. Not at all. Let's see. Well, my official title here is Chief Minister, but no one really pays mind to such things as that. To things like that. Technically speaking, I'm Hades' right-hand woman and advisor. But in practice, aside from the odd meeting, my job is mostly maintaining some of the infrastructural magics that keep the underworld running. We have employees to do the day-to-day, like if the water channeling spells quit working in your wash tub, but I see the whole network. And make sure the spell work doesn't weaken or corrode. She pauses as if to check whether you're still paying attention. Riveting, I know, but most of the time I'm able to do my own research. She gestures around herself at the accoutrements of her workstation. What are you researching right now? She beams, her natural smile brightening as her eyes narrow. Let's call it divination, shall we? Methods of magical discernment of various kinds. The more I like their secrets, but they've been kind enough to help me out a little. Oh yeah, I think I'm gonna hit the 3 hour. I might have to bow earlier than 3 hour mark. Just reading so much it's doing my throat in. But on the other hand, this is good trading for my throat, so I may as well do it. How much do you know about the other people here? His expression turns sly. In certain cases, more than they know about themselves. If you're looking for someone to divulge your secrets, you'll have tough luck down here. But if it's just general observations, I don't mind sharing a tip. Her eyes narrow with interest. Choose wisely. Curious about Hades. You admit, wondering how she'll feel about this. He is technically, in some sense, her boss, right? Expels a soft snort. Yes, well, you're very right to be, considering the circumstances. She pauses, soft hum in the back of her throat. Hades tries. He's always tried. Cares a lot about other people, sometimes at his own expense. I hope you aren't afraid of him, but I'd also understand if you were. That kind of power is no trifling matter. Even I'm intimidated by it sometimes. And I know just how deep his kindness runs. Make of that what you will, I suppose. Don't have any other pressing questions. Alright, Hecate accepts this easily. Lifting a hand, she nudges the braids that have fallen back over her shoulder. In that case, I guess that's everything from me, she pauses, and snaps her fingers, amending the statement. Actually, 2 more things. Firstly, I'm the closest thing to a healer we have here, so if you have any health concerns whatsoever, please don't hesitate to come see me. She makes a vague so-so motion with one hand. Also, if there are any spells you need refreshed or tonics to take regularly, I have or can make pretty much anything, so don't worry about interruptions to those. Pausing to make sure you're still with her, she smiles. Secondly, we're all around today, so we're eating dinner together. You should consider coming. There'll be plenty you can eat there if you're so inclined. Otherwise, I'm sure I'll see you around, Persephone. Seemed friendly and helpful, so I saw no reason to be friendly right back. Thank you, Hecate. I'll see you around. Between the book recommendation and the rest, she's been nothing but accommodating, and you appreciate it. She sees you off with a casual wave, and you take your leave from the library. Several hours later, as you prepare for the evening, you recall Hecate's invitation to dinner. Attending would surely be a way to get to know everyone a bit better, and you are quite sure that she extended the invite. Must be with the approval of at least most of the others. They all together like this sometimes, it probably counts as something of an occasion. Of course, an invitation is not an obligation. You could spend the evening some other way too. No doubt if you don't go, a meal will be delivered to you, leaving you free to eat fairly quickly and then do something else. I don't see a good reason to decline the invitation. This will be a chance to get to know the inhabitants of the underworld a little more relaxed setting. Oh, I have hit the 3 hour mark. That might be why my voice is starting to go. I think I will end it here just for the fact that my voice is starting to go. But I will probably continue this at some point. Probably not. More than once a week at most, because God, my voice. I don't want to die. Please spare my throat. Anyway, with that said, tomorrow I'm not quite moving the Pathfinder up to twice a week yet, since I want to get some things sorted before I start rushing through it. Other than that, though, we have, I think, fairly certain, Blood on the Clock Tower on the Saturday. Nope, not this Saturday. Next Saturday. So with that said, bow. Right, tomorrow will probably be something else. Probably Sticks or something like that. Or 6 or something like that. Or just whatever I really feel like. And then on Friday we will have Kingmaker. Saturday I will be resting. And Sunday is Hades. So different thirsting over Greek gods. But I will always be a little thirsty over Greek gods. So with all of that said, thank you everyone for being here and listening to Faye ramble through one of her fixations. And I hope everyone stays safe, happy, and healthy. Bye-bye everyone. Bye-bye.